hath made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Saturday, June 28th, 2025, a day which was scheduled for our first Mount of Praise Alzheimer's Disease Forum. This forum was birthed out of the thought of scheduling a training session for the members of our shut-in support team after we realized 4 of our shut-ins were having challenges relating to the Alzheimer's disease. This training session was to be presented by Kimberly Benjamin, the leader of our shut-in support team. And with her is Kimberly Coombs Bowen, her assistant. Kimberly Benjamin is a very versatile young lady and well-versed in knowledge relating to care of the elderly. With thoughts on the 4 challenging shut-ins, she ants the possibility of an Alzheimer's seminar instead of the training session. The suggestion was shared with the entire shut-ins committee, and shortly after, a meeting was scheduled with our senior pastor, Dr. McCatherine Hines, and Reverend Ronnie Quimby, our assistant pastor. Our pastors and the committee were enthused with the idea and passed on the blessings of approval. Can you imagine that at that same meeting, much brainstorming was done, and right there, a strong foundation was laid for what you will experience today. As the director of our shut-ins ministry, and ably assisted by my husband, Deacon Tyrone Cobham, Brother George Hall, and all the members of our shut-in support team, we, on behalf of our pastors and our local board of administration, are blessed and honored to welcome all of you this morning to this, our first Mount of Praise, All About Alzheimer's Disease Forum. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, 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 and may God bless you.
I'm a senior pastor here at the Mount of Praise Wesleyan Holiness Church, and I'm here to share a few words with you. An experience in the year 2000 will always stand out in my mind. On that day, I visited a shut-in member to administer communion for the first time as her new pastor. Upon entering that home, I was introduced to the shut-in member by her daughter, the caregiver. The myriad of seemingly jovial but noticeably incoherent responses caught me off guard. It was my first direct ministry encounter with an acute case of dementia. Quite amazingly, though, was the impressive way in which her daughter, the caregiver, handled a very awkward situation for me. She demonstrated an amazing amount of patience, understanding, besides acting as interpreter for me. I came away from that home thinking that that precious daughter, God bless her, and caregivers in general are often unsound heroes. And I would like to take this opportunity to ask you to put your hands together for all caregivers everywhere right now. For me, someone who is on the other side of 60, it is quite empowering to know that Alzheimer's disease is not a natural way of aging. With someone developing Alzheimer's every 3 seconds worldwide, it is important for us here in Barbados to respond to this challenge with skillful intelligence, early intervention and public education. President of the Barbados Alzheimer's Association, Dr. Evangeline Innes Springer, noted that although challenges appear daunting, tackling Alzheimer's disease requires the following: a changed mindset, and 2, multi-level interventions and commitment from all facets of society working together to transform Barbados into a dementia-friendly nation. Mount of Praise Wesleyan Holiness Church, in collaboration with the Barbados Alzheimer's Association, hosts this free forum entitled All About Alzheimer's Disease. We greatly appreciate your tremendous responses to our invitation. Please accept our warmest greetings from the ministers and boards of administration of our assembly. From conceptualization to implementation, we have had you in mind. Special greetings go to Ms. Cynthia Ford, Member of Parliament, from whom you will hear later, the Barbados Alzheimer's Association, the Ross University School of Medicine, Barbados Association of Retired Persons, and McBride Caribbean Limited. We look forward to an engaging and informative forum with insightful and practical input from the wide cross-section of presenters. Indeed, we would pray that today's forum will provide the impetus for a changed mindset and that it would make a significant difference for us all as attendees. And moreover, that difference will last. May God bless you all, and may we have a beautiful forum today.
Let's all stand together for a word of prayer. Our Father and our God, we thank you today for life. We thank you for strength. We thank you, God, for your presence. Today, Lord, we thank you that we can join together in this forum as we discuss the issue of Alzheimer's disease. We pray for every presenter. We pray, Lord God, for every attendee. We ask, Lord, that as we would go through this entire session today, that you would bless us. Father, may you give wisdom. May you bring clarity of thought. Lord, may you give understanding to all those today who are here to learn. We pray, God, over our nation and those who are challenged by this disease. We pray, God, that your grace will be upon their lives and that they would find strength in you. We pray also, Lord, for every caretaker, Lord, that you would give them the patience, the peace, the understanding, and the grace to manage and deal with their loved ones. So, Lord, we thank you today that we can be gathered together. Bless us, we pray, in Jesus' name. Amen. You may take your seats.
I'm Jennifer Butte, and I was diagnosed with Alzheimer's dementia at the age of 63, although I had already resigned as a GP because I had realized several years earlier that there was something seriously wrong. I'm now on medication, and it has made a tremendous difference to me. For many people, dementia is a very bleak prospect, but for me, it is a privilege. I now understand it from the inside as well as the outside, professionally. And my father had it. And I do not fear the future. My father once said, "Death is but the turnstile that recushions one's baggage. It doesn't alter the splendor of one's destination." Because for me, my faith is central. It all started with me getting seriously lost, so I just bought a sat-nav. I found I was unable to recognize people, even if I'd known them for years. Often mannerisms helped more than names or faces. I have difficulty finding my way home, as all houses and roads look the same. Where I live now, which has on-site dementia care, all the doors have different colours, but that doesn't help me. So I have a statuette from our previous house outside the door, which is a familiar thing for me. Travel is very difficult for me, as its complexity overwhelms me, unless I travel with someone I trust who can cope with my distress. But even so, travelling in the rush hour is a complete no-no for me. I used to be an avid speed reader, but now it does not make sense, as I do not understand what some of the letters in the words mean. And even words without context don't mean anything to me. I can manage emails and Facebook, and I listen to talking books. Money is a challenge, as I can't add up or subtract accurately. Coins confuse, but I manage online shopping because supermarkets confuse me. I did not realize I had hallucinations until they all disappeared with memantine. I can usually work out that my visual hallucinations are such, logically, but it is useful for me to understand other people who don't have that insight. Many sounds or auditory hallucinations can be worked out logically as well, because we don't have children or babies living in the village where I am, and other people are no longer around. I tend to ignore the phone because I can't cope with it, and if the family want to contact me by phone, they always pre-arrange it. Smells are my most frequent hallucination, and people get used to me looking round to see who's blowing cigarette smoke over me, or me asking, what's burning? Filling in forms can be amusing for other people. I tend to use computer spell checks. Using lifts can take a very long time. Putting stamps on envelopes can keep the post office in business. I tend to write lists. That's if I remember to read them or can find them. And not recognizing one's relatives can be very embarrassing. Understanding is slow and very different to how it used to be. Cooking recipes can be beyond me. Jigsaws can now be far too complex. Bills might as well be in Chinese. And if I say pardon, it probably means I haven't a clue what on earth you're talking about. The spiritual never dies. There are no rainbows without rain, and there can be beauty in colour and shape even if the content is obscure. I see dementia as a gift, even the same way as pain can be a useful gift in the right context. It's a privilege to learn so much more from the inside, and a glorious opportunity to explain, educate, and inspire.
A blessed good morning to everyone. It is truly an honor to welcome the next speaker. As a teenager growing up, hailing from the parish of St. Thomas, I have seen her worship in the Evangel Tabernacle group. I've seen her lead tirelessly her constituents. She leads with passion and integrity. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome the former Minister of People, Empowerment and Elder Affairs, the current Deputy Speaker of the House of Assembly, and the Member of Parliament, Honorable Cynthia Ford.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Master of Ceremonies. I want to say good morning to the pastors, the leaders, the caregivers, the members of this congregation, and all other family members who are here this morning, because I know on a Saturday morning it's mostly a big sacrifice for most of you. So I want to thank you for extending the invitations to me. And of course, I need to be here this morning because Veronica fixed me 2 weeks ago. I am sure you all heard her. She had my name, my date of birth. She is suffering from dementia, alleged. So you all are on the blogs, you know. I don't know unless my grandson puts me on it, so you know I'm at that stage. You have to rely on the youth to guide you. But I want to say what a joy it is to be here this morning in this gathering and to acknowledge the presence of the distinguished pastors and persons from the Alzheimer's Association and those from the various institutions that look after the elderly. Ms. Colleen Walcott is here with us. She heads up the National Assistance Board, and I'm sure there are many others. And in the interest of time and the limitation I have, I will not want to mention other names except to say I am happy to be here in this gathering this morning. And I made tremendous sacrifices to be here because when you live in the village and you undertake so many things, it's always difficult, especially on a Saturday morning. But thank you all for inviting me. And Dr. Wiltshire is with me. She is my legal advisor in the elderly department in the Ministry of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs. And of course, I have my grandson with me because when you become an elderly like me, you have to have him say, Granny, that's not the right word to turn through. Fortunately, I don't put on the wrong shoes. Now I don't put on the dress backward. So it says that I'm not quite there, and I pray to God it wouldn't be, but it is a disease that will impact on anybody, despite their status in life. And so, ladies and gentlemen, again, a blessed good morning, and let me let you know I have great gratitude in my heart for the invitation here at this particular function. Let me start by saying that I am really happy for the opportunity to join you to discuss the aspect of Alzheimer's that I have an idea for, because I would have been a member of the Alzheimer's Association many years ago. And of course, the topic here, it touches my heart, and it touches the lives of so many Barbadians, not only here, but across the entire world. I am particularly this morning wanting to focus on the caregivers who walk this difficult journey with love, kindness, patience, and everything else that you can draw out of a person who looks after a baby, a sick person, a person with Alzheimer's. It takes a lot out of them. And of course, I can speak with a measure of authority because my mother had Alzheimer's, and it was no easy tasks. And being almost the last of the children and being the one on ground in Barbados, it was every day and every night. And every time my father called, he was older but stronger. And it was not an easy task. And one minute they know me, and the next minute she didn't know. So one day, my sister, who was the second of the 8 of us, she too started to show signs, and Mom had already passed. I almost died looking after her. It was every day, every morning, every evening, every night, the phone calls, the visits to the house. Luckily, she was not living too far away. She was all the way down King Garden, while it was all up by Wexham Hall Gully where the monkeys are. And I went to see her one morning, and I was talking with her quite well. You had to say who you were when you got to the door. And I said, well, sis, it's Cindy. She said, come in, girl. Next 5 minutes after we were having this good conversation, she said, you leave my house here? You come in here to rob me? I call police for you, yeah? I got my knife, you hear? I said, sis, by this St. T. She said, no, you want St. T? Left my place. I went outside, walked around the house twice, and in a big house. When I came back and knocked on the door, who is it? St. T. She said, girl, I'm glad enough you come. A man that just here, coming to rob me. I didn't put my knife on it, you know? I thought you cool down, sis. And unless the caregiver has that kind of understanding, that little trick comes in, they're not able to cope. So you can imagine the emotions that they had and get ready to get vexed. So sis, but it's me though, I'm making a noise, but you know that I would get a knife. And I'm saying we need to thank caregivers, despite whatever level they are at, for that tremendous sacrifice that they made in looking after persons who are coming down with dementia. Now, we were not aware in the same way that we are now perhaps 20 years ago, because of the aging population we have in Barbados, and we need to thank God, Barbadians are living longer. I go through the obituaries every Sunday, and almost every week I see a 100-year-old, a 102-year-old, 80-something years old, 70-something years old. And therefore, it is, and it was, let me say, a strategic plan when the Ministry of People Empowerment, no, it's not People Empowerment now, but it was called Social Transformation, was developed when that government understood we are an aging society and there are too many people who have helped to lay the foundation in Barbados that are wasting away in their homes and in their villages. And that's why the National Assistance Board and other entities were formed. But I also want, as I come nearly to the close, to thank now deceased, the late Pamelia Brereton, who when she came to Barbados from Canada, she started to work with others to form that institution. And of course, she did an excellent job because me, mischievous me, one of 8 children, I tell you all, 7 girls and one boy, the worst of the children, the talkative one, we get licks every day. I decided to go down there and see what happened in that institution though. My mother wasn't at that stage yet because I was so curious as to what I was seeing. And you know, you older folks like me, way back that the lady called my birthday and everything, so you know that in my 70s, right? Right? And those families, even though we did not see it as justice at that time, the first girl child did not go too far in school. She had to stay at home, look after the children, look after granny. And now we have changed the whole structures of our families, where most or almost everybody leaves to go to live on their own and leaves granny and daddy, or daddy alone or granny alone in the household. And we are not in tune with what is happening. So the establishment of the Alzheimer's Association is one of the most powerful things that could have happened to Barbados. And I thank Pamelia, and I thank now my dear friend, Mr. Burke, who is carrying it on. And we keep stigmatizing all the time, but none of us in here knows, in this God's house, none of us in here knows what the future may hold for us. And therefore, let us work hard. Let us tithe our time. Let us pay attention to our seniors and our young children. They are the ones who will carry the generation forward, and we need to be more cohesive with whatever we do as a people and bring back what I consider in my youthful type serial, the good old days, where you looked out for your neighbor, you shouted across the road, Miss Ford, how did you win this morning? There was no telephone. There was hardly a bus at times, you used to walk to town. So the neighborliness was there. We're not getting that anymore. And our numbers are growing exponentially, and we are not paying as much attention. So this activity this morning brings a lot of understanding, and I'm sure that a lot of knowledge will come out of what is happening here. I want to advise you when you go back to your communities, your churches, your schools, whatever the organization is, please spend some time paying attention, because I think Dr. Wiltshire is 1 in 5. As we go forward, 1 in 5 in the population who will be plagued with Alzheimer's or dementia for start. And so I encourage you that. And I'm going to come to a close because it is to do with the caregivers. And I want to tell you that caregivers are often family members, mothers, sons, sisters, even neighbors, church friends. And we have to rely on the church friends in a strong way, because sometimes they have more time than others. And once they can do the training, they develop the skills and the knowledge to be able to assist those seniors among us. And it is not that you have to be 80 years or even 50 years. I've seen some children that I taught, I'm telling you, 1 or 2 of them are slipping. I look at myself as well, because sometimes I have the paper in my hand and they think that's natural anyhow, because when it's young, when people are young, they say, well, I just had a pen here and a pen in hand, you know. That is not dementia, as far as I'm concerned, but I'm saying as we age more and as we undertake more responsibilities, and when the money is not there to pay the mortgage, everything just triggers the head, and the children are disorderly, you can't get them to obey, all of those triggers will impact. And we need to make sure that all of us get that neighborliness, shouting for the neighbor, going over to visit, make sure we have conversation, take them to church. All of a sudden, almost every Bajan has a car or bicycle. but they have forgotten the bridge they have crossed. They don't remember the old lady who babysitted them when the mother was in the cane field working. They don't remember the auntie down the road, that when there was nobody there, that's where that child stood. We have now become very middle class and snobby or snotty with it too. And we have to change this society, my generation and yours. Other than that, when it gets to my grandson becoming the adult that in the 20s, when he gets there, the last part of his life, it means that those traditions and the things we did that built Barbados have gone through the window. And that is why you can hear of somebody's lot getting cut off with women in it and being robbed because we are not paying attention. We've shut off our doors for air condition and our television sets and our cell phones in our ears, and we have forgotten the people in the village who raised us when our parents could not be available. We must look after our seniors, and we must let those caregivers get a moment for the kind of respite care that is required and the kind of refreshing things they must do in order to survive. And I want to add, and then Anne will tell you, Anne was my distinguished secretary when I was in education. I am not talking anything political. I want you to know that you see that hospital that's going over in Waterford? I thank God for it. That 400-bed hospital, you know why? Too many families are dumping the seniors, especially the ones with the dementia and the Alzheimer's, at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. We have to play a role in that though, Cyril here. I'm going to find time to come for you. Not to be my friend in that way, but my friend in the friendly way that we would have been when we were young. And I want to encourage, and I'm going to start a group in the parish where I live, because I believe that this knowledge now should not only be within the institution here or wherever the Alzheimer's Association meets now, but it should spread across the island because of the critical situation we are in. And I close. I want to let you know, ladies and gentlemen, as I've given some examples already, that we cannot afford to abandon our loved ones in that way. And I had the honor, I call it honor, but I know it was dishonor, when a lady called the day and she said, I am a caregiver and I tired with this old woman, And I said, how could you be tired with the old lady? Well, she annoyed me all the time. And I tell her family, pack the suitcase and carry that Queen Elizabeth Hospital, left she at the door. Barbadians said that the closely knit family ties that we have had with our own and with strangers, and I felt so upset. And I'm not the kind of person who would have said the name for that person to lose their job. But somebody has to fill in that gap and make sure that if you are a caregiver, that you don't tie down the old people though, because I got pictures of them too. And everybody happened to say, cost ain't you afford. So I feel I'm alpha pregnant or oglopsil or something, but I don't mind. Because once I know, I'm going to draw it to the attention not only of the persons in the ministry, but I'm going to draw it to the attention of the police officers. You cannot tie down people in a bed all day and leave them. You do not know what misfortune may pass your way. So let me close, ladies and gentlemen, by saying, good luck to you and your initiatives. And Cyril, I have walked with a little poem, and I'm sure that this gathering here this morning perhaps will not mind hearing it. And it might give a little more insight, especially for the young people who are here with us, or those who don't have a relative with Alzheimer's or going into dementia, that it will give them a little insight as to what's going on in the head of a person who may be suffering with that dreaded disease. Do not ask me to remember. Do not try to make me understand. Let me rest and know you're with me. Kiss my cheek and hold my hand. I am confused beyond your concept. I am sad and sick and lost. All I know is that I need you to be with me at all cost. Do not lose your patience with me. Do not scold or curse my cry. I can't help the way I am acting. Can't be different though I try. Just remember that I need you, that the best of me is gone. Please, don't fail to stand beside me. Let me love me till my life is gone. Please, don't fail to stand beside me. Love me till my life is gone. Can you imagine that plea coming from seniors, or even the younger ones in the 50s and so who may be coming down with that dreaded disease. They need you, caregivers. They need you, family members. They need you, everybody in the communities across Barbados, because at the end of the day, we are one people, one nation, one big family, and we need to look after each other because we do not know what the future will hold for us. I wish you all God's blessings in your deliberations, and I want to again thank you sincerely. I am not a professional in this exercise. I've got experience, but if I can be of any assistance otherwise, I'll be only too happy to be able to assist. May God continue to bless you in all your endeavors, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning, everyone. I'm George Hall, a member of the Shut-ins Ministry, and I have with me two of the members of the agency that really mean all there is as far as taking care of the elderly, and those are caregivers. To my immediate right is Brenda Pope, who is a caregiver for her mom and extreme, for her partner, male, and extreme. Then there is Lana Boyce, and Lana is the caregiver for her mom. Welcome, ladies, and thank you for coming, and above all, let's thank you for adopting the role that you're in. We've heard a lot about you, and we pray God's blessings on you. My first question is, when did you suspect that your loved one might have been suffering from something or another? What were the first signs, the symptoms? Let's start with you, Brenda.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, George. The first symptoms were just before COVID, when, in addition to what you think is, senior moments, I noticed that if we went out to dinner, then he would ask the server, "So what's your name?" Which is what he used to always do. And then 20 minutes later, when the server came back, he would say, "So what's your name?" And I thought, well, he just asked that. And then I guess the other thing as well was that he started to be saying, where did I put that? So exactly as Cynthia said, and the things would be in his hand, etc. All of the things that we think are normal, but it was those kinds of little things just before COVID that he started to have those kind of short-term memory loss.
What about you, Lana? What was the first sign?
Well, my mom started to forget things. And, well, my grandmother had it as well. So we saw them, but we didn't really pay much attention. We thinking, you forget things. But then she went for a checkup, and they had told her she was in the early stages. So, but things occur, and like, that's strange, but Mom, asked me the same question. She's like, I did? I said, yeah. She said, but I can't remember. I said, no problem. So once they told me that she was in the early stages, then I started to put things in place. I started then to watch her more carefully. So she would have been hiding things like, somebody take up my money. One of your thief in my money. I can call the police runner. And then she got stashed. So just those little things that you have to be mindful of, the hide things. She started to hide food. She would put things into clothes and tie them up. I going home. And she originally came from Boscobel and St. Peter, so every day, I going back to my mother's house. I'm like, but where your mother is, Mom? Because you used to call my grandmother mother. So it's like, where mother is? Oh, mother died. I said, so how you going by mother house? Oh, But she going. So it's just little things. Everything is not dementia, but when you see a pattern and it started to develop, well, you have to start putting things in place.
In retrospect, now you have the diagnosis, Were there any earlier signs that you think you might have missed, earlier to what you described?
Hello? Yes. Yeah, I guess yes, in the sense that one year we had traveled to see his sister-in-law, because his brother was dead, in Canada. And because he had to go every year for his medical checkups because he's a Canadian citizen. And I noticed that he now couldn't, well, I would have to do all the driving, even though he was the one that knew Canada better. And he didn't remember, he would say, well, you know, my sense of direction was not always so great, which is true, because mine was always better, but still, it was little things like that that he couldn't remember, like which turning to take off of a particular highway, a highway he had driven for however many years earlier on. And then I guess the one thing now looking back that I guess I should have really twigged to is that we had gone to the mall one day, and when just when we were getting ready to leave, his sister-in-law and we needed to go back into a store for 15 minutes. He said, no, I don't want to go back in there again. So we said, all right, just sit here for 15 minutes and we will be back. And of course, 2 women, it didn't take 15 minutes, it took more like 30. And when we came out, he wasn't there. And we said, well, where has he gone? So then we're looking all over the mall. Anyway, long story short, in the end, we searched the mall with the mall people, and they couldn't find him. And in the end, he had started to wander down the road. And in the end, it was the police that we had to call the police, and they found him. But that was the first time that had ever happened. And he said, well, you know, I got so tired of waiting for you all, so I was gonna head back home. And so he was walking to go to the subway to get the train home. So, I mean, I guess then nothing like that happened before, and nothing like that happened since. But I guess I'm not sure what triggered that, such a significant loss of memory, I guess.
What about you, Lana? Any early signs that you thought you might have missed?
Well, we knew she was in the early stages, but it actually triggered more when she got her diagnosis for stage 3 breast cancer.
Okay.
So then she ended up going through chemotherapy. Then, while having chemotherapy, she fell and broke her wrist in 3 places. So,
Yeah. Okay.
Then after that, all of us had COVID, so we were in home isolation. Then when chemo restarted, after that, she had a mastectomy. After the mastectomy, she wandered away, which was Easter Monday. So she was going home, pack a bag, barefoot, bus fare in hand, key in hand, and she was heading to Oistins.
Okay.
So while trying to get her back home, she fought, ended up fracturing her finger. Then she had radiation. So having all of that one behind the other just took her right down to the point where now she doesn't know me, she doesn't know who I am.
Yeah. We have 15 minutes, which is too short a time for this, but quickly, how did the diagnosis affect you, your family, and your daily routine, if you want to call it that, quickly, if you could, because we want to open the floor to a couple of questions,
Sure, no
but I just wanted to get a feel for, your experience, and then you could share with the others who might want to ask questions from the floor.
Sure.
Quickly, how did it affect you, individual, you're looking after your mom, your partner, as well as the entire family? How drastically did it affect you?
I think it just, when you know, then it just makes it easier because, and well, up until then, in any case, I was starting to see that he had dementia anyhow, and I found that because I'm very upfront, I always tell people, don't worry about, because he was by then not being very coherent, and I would say, well, you have to forgive him, he has dementia. When we were going out to the various places, and he wouldn't listen, or people, he would have an inappropriate conversation or with somebody, I would say he has dementia. And I found that that made people say, oh yeah, my aunt, my uncle, my grandmother, whoever. I think also having it diagnosed formally then just lets you then face up to all of the reality. So then I started to put, what I would say, this is the one piece of advice I would say to people, is to set realistic expectations and be ready to lower those expectations. And the reason I say that is because the single, to me, biggest source of anger, resentment, frustration, all of those things, is when there's a difference between your reality and your expectations. So if you set your expectations at point A, based on your reality, then you don't feel resentful when it's not met. And I'll use an example, a simple example of on a small scale. He's shaved every day of his life. And then now he wasn't able to necessarily do it anymore. So what I would do is I would put the shaving cream on his face, but I didn't expect it, so I no longer expected it. But I would put the shaving cream on his face, and if he shaved, then it was a good day. If he didn't shave, I didn't expect it, so I wasn't feeling upset because he wasn't able to do that. And you can extrapolate that into all areas of life. If you set your expectations very low, then when they're not met, or the person doesn't live up to it, I don't expect him to recognize me. I don't expect a lot of things any longer now. And over time, like he was an athlete growing up. He played for Antigua, and he played cricket for Antigua, etc. He was very active. Then he was the one that got me into walking, etc., and would say, come on, we can do this. And we'd walk for an hour, hour and a half. Now we still walk. I still try and get him out at least 3 or 4 days a week. But now the expectation is, first of all, shorter. I should add as well, he has glaucoma, is that we go a shorter distance, and I now can't go ahead, because I have to stay within eyesight, because otherwise he would get lost. Okay. So now my expectation is that we just only do 30 minutes, and if he can keep up, and he does it, but I can't go out of his sight, because otherwise he would get lost.
Okay. Lana?
Well, in my case, it impacted mostly myself and my 2 daughters, because it's only us. And with my youngest daughter being 15, so a lot of sacrifices had to be made because we can't leave my mom alone. So I work full-time as well, so I request to work all nights. We'll be with her during the day. And then when my eldest daughter comes home from work, I leave and go to work. So every day I work strictly nights, coming home the next morning. It impacted them because they were so accustomed to my mom being the person there, the strong one. And it was a real culture shock for us, knowing she was the person always there, always strong, always you could turn to, and the roles reversed. So now I am the mother. I have to make sure she's eating, make sure she's taking her medication. And it's like you're dealing with a toddler once again, because sometimes they get into that stubborn, and she, don't touch me. And you just have to deal with it. Emotionally, for the caregiver, it's not only the person they're taking care of that is going through it, the caregiver is going through it as well. We're seeing all the changes. And for me, it's really hard because knowing how my mother was before to the stage she's at, even when I'm giving her a bath, I have to hold back the tears so I can't let her see me crying. It's a hard process.
Okay.
So every day is not the same. As I was telling Brenda, like yesterday before we went to work, in between sleep and wake, because I got home after 2 yesterday morning, and I don't get sleep not till like after 5, after 6. And my mom was up. I tell her, don't trouble me. And she was doing a whole tirade in the house. And my youngest was up with her. And she crying and she ran, and I get up, like, Mom, what happened? I tell him don't trouble me, and I'm doing my best. And my brother, I said, I said, you're going to be okay. It's going to be all right. So you just sometimes have to, when you hear them, just let them be, because where they are at, you cannot go and you cannot bring them back to where you are.
Okay, thank you. Is there one question from the floor? We have microphones. We are running out of time, but we would like to at least have one question from the floor, please. Anybody? All right. We do not hear you clearly.
Yeah. Oh. Taking care of your mom. Stressful?
Very much so. It is very emotional, and in terms of trying to balance work, home, taking care of her, and still trying to take care of yourself in all of this. And majority of the time, the caregiver is so focused on the person they're taking care of, they neglect themselves. So for me, it's respect to all the caregivers, because it's not an easy task. But as a caregiver, you have to factor in yourself, because if you lose it, everything's all over. And I had panic attacks and anxiety attacks because it was so much. Because with my mom getting her diagnosis with cancer and everything, my dad had died as well. So it was trying to battle the two and still trying to be there for everybody. So it's okay at times to cry, to be angry, to be frustrated. You acknowledge it, but push through.
A response from you, Brenda, before we close?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I would like to reiterate what Lana said. I think it's really important for the caregivers, but I'd also like to encourage anybody who's not a caregiver, who's a family member of a caregiver, to try and give them some me time. And the gift that you can give, sometimes people ask, well, what can I give you? Is to offer some me time. For my birthday last month, my sisters gave me these vouchers, me time vouchers, that I can redeem for overnight, to stay with Ted overnight, or to come and babysit. I'm redeeming one tomorrow when I'm going to something else. Not that they weren't doing this before, but they explicitly are giving me a voucher so that I can redeem the time. It's really, really, really important that you, and if anybody here, even if you're not impacted, you know somebody who is, offer to go and stay with the person for even an hour and a half, so that they can get a break, especially if they're in a situation where they do not have support. I am blessed, I am fortunate that I have a family support structure, and that I also have some financial wherewithal. I can take him, and I'm also blessed that he is such a non-aggressive personality, so people are quite happy to stay with him. He loves music. You put on Calypso, and that will keep him quiet. He loves children, so if there are any children around, that will keep him quiet. But if you can offer to give the caregiver some me time, that is the biggest gift that you could give them.
Thank you very much. Time is not our friend this morning. Unfortunately, we are out of time, but let me, on behalf of the organizing committee, thank you both, and I'm sure that all present here would like to applaud you as we come to the end of this session. Thank you, Brenda.
Sorry, I'd just like to
Lana.
say one thing. If you are a caregiver, there's a website called dailycaring.com. And what's really great about it is that every day to your email comes some kind of advice, guidance, tools, etc. Half of them are not relevant to us because they're very US-based, but the other half give you some support, thoughts, ideas, different things about gifts to give, gifts not to give, things to do, how to look after yourself. So dailycaring.com is a really good resource that you can use to have access to information on looking after Alzheimer and dementia patients.
Thank you very much. And just let me inform all present that Brenda and Lana will be around during the intermission or a refreshment break so you can pose any other questions you might have to them. Thank you, ladies, very much.
Thank you. Hello, yeah. Can I ask, what are your feelings alike? Because you're his partner, you're not his mother, he's not your son, he's not your daughter. It must be different to somebody who's looking after their parent or their grandparent. What are your personal emotions alike?
There's a lot of sadness and somberness, I guess, because this is not what we had thought. I had not. I mean, I knew he was older than I was, 12 years older. He's 80 now, I'm 68. But it feels very lonely at times because, as you say, it's the partner and it's not your child or your mother that you had, time with. He was married before, I was married before, so this is a partnership in our second lives. But equally well, what I have to say is that it's the better and worse, and I was fortunate to get the better first, and now this is the worse. And maybe it's easier because he's such a genuinely nice person that, I feel that if it was reversed, this is what he would do for me, and therefore, that's what I do. I look after him, and I get breaks when I travel. Like, there's a home that I can put him in for the week or so I still get to get some breaks. But it's just sad when you see the person that was the leader and was a person that did so much for his country and for the family and the community, to see them now in a situation where they can't really care for themselves, and it just kind of hurts your heart. Your heart breaks a little bit every day.
Thank you very much, ladies, and we will continue our discussion during the refreshment break. Thank you very much for coming.
But everyone, with everything that was just said, and we were mentioning the caregivers, this is about the caregivers. So with that, and I'm happy to announce, along with the Alzheimer's group, we are launching a support group for the caregivers. In your welcome package, you will see the flyer where there's a QR code that you can scan. It's free registration, and we're doing this whereby we can offer that emotional support, and you're going to get more information about dementia and Alzheimer's, because there are many places on the websites, on the internet, that gives you advanced research, what's happening, things you can do. And with one of the things, this is one of the things that I was passionate about, is that we did not have anything for the caregivers. Although we focus so much on the person that is living with the disease, the caregiver is going through the same thing. The emotional changes they have to deal, and trust me, if you've had trauma, if you're taking care of a relative or a loved one that you did not have a good relationship, and you now have to be that caregiver for that person, you have to get past that trauma and that emotional baggage in order to proceed carefully and to do right by them. And also with this, we're going to be doing things like offering first aid basic training, because I believe that everyone that is caring for the elderly should have those basic first aid skills, whereby anything happens, you can provide that first response until medical help arrives. So everybody can see on the screen there, and you have it in your welcome package. Free to ask any member of the Alzheimer's Association, myself, about any questions you may have and how you can be a part of this support group. Thank you.
My next guest is Dr. Ambrose Ramsey, who specializes in geriatric medicine and internal medicine. Again, we have 15 minutes to discuss Alzheimer's with Dr. Ramsey, and let's get rolling. Dr. Ramsey, I want it to be brief, but yet I want it to be incisive. What is Alzheimer's disease?
Good morning. Good morning.
Yeah.
Yes, good. Yes, thank you for inviting me to this forum, and it's really good to see so many of you here. Now, Alzheimer's is a disease, okay? It's a disorder that affects the brain, and it results in memory loss. It results in changes in personality. It also eventually results in the individual being unable to care for themselves, and hence you would have heard from two caregivers today with their experiences. It is very common, and it becomes more common as you get older, and as you know, Barbados has an aging society. Now, what is it? There are several types. There are several types of Alzheimer's, of dementia, and the most common types would be Alzheimer's type. The next most common type would be the vascular type, and it's arguably the vascular type may be even more common here in Barbados given our non-communicable disease profile, hypertension, diabetes. But the bottom line is that the individual will need care. So the little nitty-gritty as it relates to caregivers as to the different types isn't really that important. But the importance is to know that it is a disease. It causes it depersonalizes the individual, and that individual eventually needs to be looked after.
We talk of dementia, we talk of dementia, Alzheimer's. What is it? What?
Right, okay, so again, dementia is, it's kind of like an umbrella term. It's like, let's say you have a car, but you may have a Mercedes-Benz and you may have a Suzuki. So let's say the Mercedes-Benz would be the Alzheimer's, and the Suzuki would be the vascular dementia. So dementia is an umbrella term, and the Alzheimer's, the vascular, the Lewy body, the frontotemporal, there are several different types, but what's important is to recognize it and put things in place to deal with it, or to help the person who's living with dementia to deal with it.
I worked in an area where, in news and information, Alzheimer's has literally popped up. In my younger days, in my village where I was raised, someone who, well, now you know that it's Alzheimer's, but there were the derogatory terms of dotish and that sort of thing. Signs were prevalent all the way back then. Did we lose out in not recognizing the symptoms of way back then? Would it have made a difference? And what has literally caused, literally, the upsurge in the numbers that we are seeing?
Yes, you made an important point that it existed way back 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And the older persons I remember, you see an older person in the neighborhood, and they're odd, they do strange things, and people, they say they're dotish or they're stupid, or they're witch, old witch, things like that. And quite often it was a woman. But what has happened is that was likely to be dementia, no matter which type. But what has happened now is that we have, back then, our population was younger. And the majority of the population was probably less than 40. Now we have a significant amount of the population now who is over 65. And because dementia becomes more common as you get older, we have a much older population now. And because of the older population, you're going to see more persons exhibiting that behavior that I would have described earlier. And hence, just simply know that Barbados has an elderly population is the reason why we're seeing much more persons with this dementia.
But we still have some who are much younger who are developing Alzheimer's.
Correct. So it's not, dementia is not restricted to the elderly. Young persons, people who are working at working age are not as many as, of course, those who are over age 65, but there are young people who are at work and not performing who are developing dementia. And of course, it leads to job loss. If you have someone in there, let's say 50 plus, and they've developed, they can no longer perform at work, and the appropriate assessments are done, they may very well be diagnosed with dementia. I'm not saying that that dementia is a cause of reduced work performance, but it's something that has to be considered. So you're looking at what we call now, this is a term called early onset dementia or early onset Alzheimer's. So it's not restricted to the elderly. So if you have a middle-aged person who is exhibiting the same symptoms, signs that would have been aptly described by two caregivers that we have here, Brenda and Lana, and also in the initial video, which was there was a doctor, Jennifer was her first name, she was able, even though she has a diagnosis of Alzheimer's, to express what she experienced.
Before I take a question from the floor, I'm in my mid-80s. But if I forget something, I will always say, well, I forget. Should we do self-diagnosis?
No, I would not advocate for self-diagnosis. And again, simply forgetting what you would have just experienced is not Alzheimer's, okay? Or dementia. Dementia is a combination of memory loss or forgetfulness, plus the onset of the inability to function properly. So the memory now is affecting your ability to perform at work, to take care of yourself, to organize and get things done. Now, if that is happening, this is likely to be Alzheimer's, but even in that case, one should not self-diagnose because there are several other conditions that can mask or appear to be dementia. So someone suffering with severe depression, become apathetic, forgetful, not take care of themselves, and you would think, no, that he's or she's suffering with dementia. But it may be just severe depression, which can be treated. And I note that because severe depression can be treated successfully. Alzheimer's or dementia, on the other hand, gets worse with time. It does not get better.
For those of us in the audience who might have elderly folk in our families or with whom we associate, what are the very early signs that you can pick up? I mean, simple things that you'll be able to pick. It's just as you said, memory loss, what have you. So should we pay a lot more attention to the elderly in our families?
Yes.
Closer attention?
Yes, and if we could pull up these slides, and actually there are some flyers out there which you can all pick up from the Barbados Alzheimer's Association, and it describes 10 warning signs which should raise suspicion of dementia. Anyone or a combination would really need to be considered. And chief is memory loss, okay? And eventually there's loss of function, misplacing things, not being able to perform familiar tasks, plan, and withdrawal, okay? So if you see any of those signs that you see on the flyer, raise suspicion and do not ignore it. One should then seek medical advice. Go to a doctor or take that individual to a doctor, because there are many people who are experiencing early signs of dementia that are not aware, and as far as they're concerned, there's nothing wrong. So some persons will need to be urged, to seek help or be taken to seek help.
Before we take a question or two from the floor, is there any likelihood or on the signs on the horizon that there is some progress being made in curing Alzheimer's, or at least staving it off?
Yeah, there is lots of research ongoing into this illness. Unfortunately, so far, the progress has been made in treatments to slow the progress of the illness, but there's nothing yet that would, suggest a cure. And it is difficult because there are so many underlying factors that contribute to the development of the illness. It makes it hard to date, we haven't been able to find any one common target that can be, addressed to, let's say, cure the illness. And even within the Alzheimer's disease diagnosis, there are several different types. So it's very complex. The new drugs on the market they work within the brain and trying to clear some of the inflammation and plaques and proteins, abnormal proteins that develop, which cause other brain cells to deteriorate. Those new drugs help, again, still to slow the progress of the illness, but they do not reverse what has been lost. So we still have a pretty long way to go.
Okay. Any questions from the floor before we close?
Hold on a minute. Hold on.
Years ago at our seminar, we had somebody 45 years old who had Alzheimer's. I don't know if you remember that seminar we had. That I spoke about it.
Yeah, and since then, people have been diagnosed in their 30s, and there's a case of a teenager being diagnosed with Alzheimer's.
Whoa.
So it is not, it's something that you need to be aware of, and just to be aware, be familiar.
Good morning. Good morning, Dr. Ramsey. Just a quick question. Would you say, or do you have numbers to indicate if it is higher in men, or if it is lower in women, or is higher in women, or is it just about the same across the board? Would you be able to speak to that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And again, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, that's a really good question. It appears to be more common in women, and we're not quite clear as to the reason why. It may be related to the menopause, hormonal changes which occur around 50. Memory loss is one of the signs also of menopause. One of the things that happens as women go into menopause. But what is also very important is that women live longer than men. Okay, so, and as the population ages, you get a higher proportion of women in the older population than you have men. So naturally, you're going to have, statistically, there will be more women than men living with the illness. But there also seems to be a female preponderance.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
This is the final question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good morning. Apologies. Dr. Ambrose, how long have you been practicing geriatric medicine?
Good question. 20, 23, maybe 24 plus years.
I see. I have a couple of quick questions for you, if you wouldn't mind. One, over the decades that you have been within the medical field, do you believe awareness of Alzheimer's disease has helped put more people within the profession of studying it and developing medicine for it?
There's a greater interest in, of course, working in the field and also doing research to develop treatments. I mean, if you go to any of the Alzheimer's Disease Association websites and look up research, you can see there's several studies that are ongoing within that area. I missed your first question though. You had asked about something about the numbers.
I'm referring to since people have become more aware of it as the leading cause of dementia.
Very good. So yes, there's a greater awareness of Alzheimer's disease around the world, and I can specifically say for Barbados because of the Barbados Alzheimer's Association. And the past president, Miss Brereton, who has died, she spearheaded the formation of the association, and over the years, the association has been able to raise awareness within Barbados through fora like these and meetings at churches and schools, and so those things are still ongoing, and hence we have a greater awareness. People, recognize it more, and I think we are better for it here in Barbados. But of course, a lot more work is left to be done.
If you could hold your questions for Dr. Ramsey, he'll be available after, but we are running a tight schedule. We're out of time, but you can talk to Dr. Ramsey during the break. Sorry about that, but we're out of time. Dr. Ramsey, thank you very much for coming and enlightening us, and continue the good work you were doing.
So, gentlemen, please stand with me. My name is Omita D, and it's time for our movement session. Do you know that exercise boosts brain health by enhancing memory, mood, and cognitive function? Yes, it does. We're going to do just 2 stretches before we go into our movements. So I am taking my left hand, put it over my head, and go to the right. So stretch. I know you don't have much room to your left and right, but do the best you can. And my right hand to the left, and again, left to the right, right to the left. Good. You're some good students. We're going to get some music now from Brother Veer Norville. And we're going to start by marching on the spot. Come on, loosen up. Move your hands with the music, man. Okay, we're gonna do this. Left foot out, right foot out. Left to the side, right to the side. Yes. Yes, move those hands. Yes, hands is involved. Both hands are involved. Both feet are involved. This is the day that we've been waiting to attend this forum. We're gonna change again, march on the spot. We're twisting now. Twist to your right, twist to your left. Keep those feet moving. Come on. Yes. Go, 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 go. Okay, marching time, march. We're changing now. Hands up and hands down. Keep those feet going. Yes. Looking good, looking good. We're changing again. Okay, we're going to make this the last. Hands out. Yes. Okay, give yourselves a clap. Good. Thank you. You've been really great.
A lovely morning to all. I'm sure we're a bit more energized now that we've had that music and movement session. So a lovely morning to all. After that music and movement session, I expect my presentation to be highly interactive. As we can see here, I am actually one of the executive board members for the Alzheimer's Association, but I want to focus on patient-centered care. And I know that at the end of the day, a number of persons came here today not only to have information about the patient, but obviously about everyone who is supporting the patient. And so therefore, we are building on a lot of the hard work, as a number of persons have already indicated that Pamelia would have made in terms of advocacy for Alzheimer's disease in Barbados. As was aptly mentioned, of course, we know that dementia is the umbrella term, and ultimately 60% of persons who have dementia are Alzheimer's disease sufferers. And so this is the reason why we put so much emphasis on this disease state and this condition. There are a number of other things, like for example, we impress upon persons, dehydration is something that you should think about as well, because that can cause a lot of confusion for some patients. But 60% of persons who have dementia symptoms, and my slides are even moving. I thought that they were, so my apologies. Building on Pamelia's work, and of course, the alignment that we do have with the Alzheimer's Disease International body. For 2024, we focused on the time to act on Alzheimer's and dementia. For 2025, we're talking about asking about dementia and asking about Alzheimer's disease. And it is very important because, as I mentioned, 60% of persons who have dementia symptoms are Alzheimer's disease sufferers. And so we look to ways that we can reduce risk for persons. Based on the World Health Organization information, a number of things will cause or are stated as it relates to the risk. And we like to look at the combination between the global cardiovascular risk factors, high blood pressure, diabetes, cholesterol, etc., because what is good for your heart is also good for the brain. And so what we can see here are a number of things which can increase risk. But of course, as with anything that we're thinking about as it relates to risk can be modifiable or non-modifiable. Obviously, age is non-modifiable. We can't do anything about our age. And we already heard from Dr. Ramsey that whilst age is a significant risk factor, Alzheimer's is not a natural part of aging. And so therefore, even though you may be over 65, it is not inevitable that you will have these symptoms. However, it is something that we cannot change, and so we look at the things that we can change. High blood pressure, diabetes, cholesterol, reducing our stress. Social interaction is also something that we like to impress upon persons because, of course, that lack of social interaction will lead to things like depression, anxiety, and of course, we would have realized over COVID as well that the numbers for Alzheimer's and dementia would have spiked, in addition, of course, to the numbers for anxiety and general depressed patients. And we spoke also for the warning signs, and I want to focus, because of course you know that my presentation is patient-centered care, challenges, and solutions. And of course, some of the things that I want to talk about are related to these warning signs. So we're going to be speaking about communication. We're going to be speaking about wandering. We're going to talk about bathing. We're going to talk about, of course, caregivers as well, because my personal premise, and I can speak from personal experience, you must nurture the goose. It's very difficult. Sometimes we don't necessarily have the time, or we may have frustrations as well trying to deal with some of these difficult scenarios. But this is the reason why we're coming here today, to get some tips as to what it is that we can best do and handle. I love the poem because we use the poem very much as the Honorable Cynthia would have indicated, and she would have highlighted that poem because it's a poem that will give a very, very good idea as to what the patient is going through. And there's a lot of grief associated. There's a lot of grief associated with Alzheimer's because you're practically grieving a person who is still alive in front of you. There's a lot of things that you're thinking about, and it's very difficult. And so, in the interest of time, I know that I'm flying through these slides, but I'm making sure that I at least touch on a number of these issues. So a lot of the times, a lot of the patients can feel angry. You can feel a sense of loss. You're obviously feeling pretty anxious because you're not sure what's going to happen later on in your life. You have difficulty trying to articulate, and I'm going to come down because as I said, you know, we had that music and movement, and I'm expecting interaction, so you're not going to be able to hide from me today. But we want to ensure that when persons feel this loss, that we understand how to deal with it, because at the end of the day, it could be, you know, you say all the time, you may have 99 people, but there's always one. There's always one person who could be in that situation. That one person could be me, it could be you. And so if we are having difficulty, if you sat and you were like, okay, I'm trying to explain, but I cannot find the word. I know it is in my brain, but it's not coming. How do you think you'd feel? There's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of shame. You're trying to, you know, wonder, well, how bad is this situation going to be? Is this something that is predictable? Which, of course, we know it is not. We heard from the caregivers, it's very unpredictable. And there's some persons who may have a very long span in mild to moderate, and then there's some persons who, unfortunately, due to other issues, may be very severe. So the idea here really is to understand what is going on and try to make sure that you treat the person the way you want to be treated. So if I'm going here and let me use this gentleman, and I'm talking to him, he's going to want me to come with a positive body language if I'm speaking to him. If he is, say for example, he has grieved his wife and may not remember it, and he comes to me and he says, "Where's Susan?" I know obviously that Susan has passed. Is it advantageous to either of the two of us for me to dredge that story up constantly to put him through that entire? No, it is not. It is not. So these are things that we have to think about. How would I want to be treated in such a scenario? And so when I talk about communication, is communication from the perspective of what the patient is going through, but it's also communication from what would I want to see if I were in this position. Am I going to come here and be like, I tell you this here already? You mean to tell me you're repeating this for the next 4 times? Or even if I say nothing and I cross my hands and I look at you like, this person got to be an idiot. I don't understand. We have to be cognizant of the things that we're doing. And so I want us to think about this because there are a number of tips, but I want us to think about a particular scenario. So imagine if you were the daughter of a person with Alzheimer's, and that person felt that they were 7 years old. And every time they spoke to you, this is how they related to you. They related to you as, "Oh, mommy, I don't want to eat today. Oh, I just want to have, you know, I just want to have chips today. Bring some chifette for me." You know, and of course you are the daughter. They're the parent. What are some of the things you think you should not do? And what are the things you think you should do within this situation? Now, I know that I have limited time, so I'm giving everybody 1 minute to think about this, and then I'm picking people. Yes? So we can think about it. What are some of the things that we would want to do, and what are some of the things that we would not want to do in such a situation? First person.
Well, I would agree. If you want to have chips and you want to have chifette, that's fine, because I know that in probably another couple of minutes, your mind is going to change.
Exactly. Very good. I see a nod over here. So I'm coming over.
Hi, I would give them the chips and the chifette because they're not going to ease up off of it. They're going to want the chips and the chicken.
Of course, if this person is asking for chips and chifette every day.
I would give them. That's what they want.
Okay, so we stick a pin in that one right there. I appreciate your response, and thank you. I will stick a pin right there, just before. And so remember, we talked about, yes, persons are going to want what they want. What is interesting about this is the short-term memory loss. And that's the thing with Alzheimer's. You have short-term memory loss. So it means that you can remember something from 25 years ago, but what happened today, what happened yesterday, difficulty in recalling. And so, of course, I will never advocate to have non-nutritional, not saying that persons can't have chifette every now and again, but obviously we wouldn't want to yield to everything that the person does ask for, especially if it is not going to be a healthy option for them. So what would be useful here is the dialogue that you have, because you know they're not going to recall that they've been asking for it. But it does take a lot of creativity, and this is the reason why we are having this session, so that we can think about these things beforehand. Like I always say, you dig the well before you're thirsty. You can't wait till you're thirsty to then want water. You got to do things beforehand to ensure that you have tips that are going to help you to manage this condition. And so you have, there's a gentleman here, but so you have to understand that you must be creative. Yes, this is what they may want, but if it is not something that is going to be beneficial to them, then we can't do that every day. So for example, you have some person who you're speaking to, and they don't want to eat. I'm not ready to eat. I ate already. Even though you know, obviously, they have not eaten already. So you can try to shift the focus on things that they may like. If you know that they like cuckoo, for example. If you know that they may like a particular set of music, you can play some of the music, have a different conversation, and then revert to, oh, so you're ready to eat now? And not necessarily have a situation where, okay, it is now 5 o'clock in the afternoon, or it is now, I mean, if the person isn't completely hungry and dehydrated, does it really matter if they eat now or 20 minutes from now? No. And it also allows you to have less of a frustration trying to force the person into something that they may not necessarily wish to do at that time, especially if it is not going to be something significantly hampering them. Remember, all of us want to maintain independence, and all of us want to maintain a sense of control. And at the end of the day, yes, it may not necessarily factor in that I can go to the bank any longer, I may not be able to go to the supermarket any longer, but I can certainly determine when I wish to eat, or I can determine when I would like to bathe, depending on, obviously, on the individual. And we'll see this as I speak to the bathing a bit later on.
Yes, my name is Derek, but I'm wondering if a person you eat and about 2 hours or hour after, they said them had nothing for the day, they're real hungry. Yes. Why are you doing that case?
Yes, and this is a very, very common scenario where they've been fed already and they do want to eat again. What some people tend to do is to give another half portion, but aside from that, you obviously don't want to overfeed persons, especially if they're going to be sedentary, because then remember the cardiovascular risk is still something you have to think about, and what we're doing good for our hearts, we are doing good for our brain. And so we would try in this situation, distracting.
Good morning to all. What do you do when you have the person is very aggressive? What do you do? Uncontrollable.
Okay, all right. I will, I actually have agitation and aggression later on in the slides. So I will address that a bit later. They have asked me to stay closer down, so y'all have, the people at the back have been spared from my interaction this morning. But obviously we're streaming this as well, so I have to maintain in this general area. But I will get to your question about the agitation and aggression, because I have that listed here. So we have a number of tips that y'all would have generated. And so I want us to look at the issue of communication. Can we go to the next slide? The things that we would have mentioned, the tone of voice, the body language, you know, obviously trying to ensure that we're treating that person the same way that we would want to be treated. We want to keep two-way conversation for as much as possible. And sometimes when you're communicating with them and they're 40 years back, there are lots of things that you can actually uncover that you had no idea about. And this would be the time to uncover some things that are useful and happy memories for them. You want to know where they used to live, what school they went to, you know, what friends they would have had. All of this information would be useful to you because then this is stuff you can bring up in conversation. So for example, I am aware of an older colleague who went to, of course, you know, the University of Waterford. And this brought a lot of, yes, of course. This brought a lot of very good memories. And what the family used to do would be to drive him past the school so as to generate the conversation and to calm the person down as well. If you know that there's, so for example, you may have a relative who the person loves. They may not be able to be there all the time because we know how it goes with caregiving. You know, sometimes the person who is there constantly is getting the brunt of the frustration, and the person who's hardly ever there, you know, kind of gets it is life, exactly. It's unfortunate, but it is the way that it is. Use the name of that person to kind of settle them down as well. Because, and of course, everything is contextual, because we know we don't have a cookie-cutter situation for anything. This is why it's person-centered care. We have to have individualized care specific to each patient. But these are things that we have to do. You uncover information, you use it for the future when you're having dialogue with persons. So of course, the home, the schools, all of the favorite things they used to do, all the things they like to do, if they like gardening, the type of music, you don't wait until you're in a situation and then you're like, okay, what kind of music they really like? Do they like back in time music? Is it old time calypso, spooch? We have to know so that we can have that playing to kind of change the mood. And of course, we recognize that music does change mood. My second slide, which I omitted, actually was an entire song that I know would have lifted our mood immediately, but I took it out because I knew that we had that music and movement beforehand, so there's no need for me to put in anything additional. I'd like to go to the next slide because it actually does show you the example of a video of a person who, unfortunately, is dealing with a scenario where...
Yeah?
What do you mean?
Well, I don't know what I mean, but I can't breathe anymore.
Oh, that's not good. Are you feeling a bit better now? You have to take a big deep breath in.
A little bit, but I have a biscuit, yes, Mummy.
Oh.
Nothing to eat, I have a biscuit.
You want a biscuit and that will make it better, will it?
Yes.
What about your dinner?
I don't want any dinner, Mummy, I'm not hungry.
Oh. And not even your pudding? Oh. But a biscuit will do just fine. You are funny.
I know.
Yeah, you make me laugh.
I'm pleased I do.
Oh dear. What would I do without you?
I don't know, Mother. I don't know what I would do without you either.
Oh.
Because you feed me, don't you?
I do feed you.
Who are you?
I'm Jessica.
I thought you was Jessica. You said I'm Mother.
Oh, no, I'm Jessica.
You're Jessica?
Yeah.
All right, Jessica, hello.
Hello.
Have you brought me something to eat?
Well, I've brought you your dinner today, but you don't want it.
I don't want my dinner, don't I?
No, would you like to try some now?
Right, yes, please.
Okay, I'll go get...
So I like this video because not only does it highlight creative ways to have dialogue with some of the patients, which is difficult. I mean, nobody's going to say it's easy. It's difficult because from the side of the patient, you are where they're at. Makes no sense you trying to drag them into reality. You go into their reality. This is where they're at. You meet them there. But we also have to recognize as a young person, can you imagine what she must be thinking? You know, whenever she's going to her grandmother, the grandmother thinks that, you know, this is my mother. And so it takes a lot of grace as well. And I compliment her actually for the way that she handled that. And this is the reason why I placed this example right here, because I would like all of us to kind of consider this scenario. We have to give grace when we're having these situations because we recognize the reality of the situation. And on top of it, for younger people, and a lot of times people don't like to communicate with people around them. They don't want this body to know, they don't want the next body to know. We have to have a community involvement, and we have to involve our younger persons. I think someone mentioned earlier the need for youth involvement, and I would, well, people who know me know very well that I believe in succession planning, and I believe in ensuring that the youth are heavily involved, and we do a lot of work through the association with young people so that they can also have an understanding as to what is happening with their relative, all of the confusion, all of the frustration, and sometimes you would be shocked to know, and I know Lana has mentioned, her daughter does an excellent job in trying to kind of broach that tide with her mom. And so this is very important. It doesn't make sense trying to hide people away because this is a reality. We know there's no cure at present, but we have to find ways to manage. I'll go to the next slide, thank you. Wandering is a huge concern. Because persons, you would have realized one of the signs, one of the warning symptoms is a lack of spatial awareness. You know, before you were able to get into your vehicle, drive wherever you were going and find things very easily. You could go in to the supermarket, you knew which aisle to go. You know, there's a lot of confusion because the spatial awareness is hampered as it relates to the Alzheimer's. What a number of persons also need to recognize is that sometimes when people are wandering, they want to go home, and home may not necessarily be the space where you live at present. Home can be a feeling of safety, a sense of safety. They want a space where they may feel safe. That's sometimes what they may be telling you, because they're also confused. They're going through all types of different things, and so therefore, when you wander, you're trying to get somewhere else because wherever you are seems confusing to you. You can't understand why you're in this position. And so we want to focus not only on preventative measures when it comes to wandering, but we also want to focus on what we can do. Now, I can't go all the way down to you, so unfortunately, you'll have to come to the microphone for this one. But most people, as we can see here, and I know that we're working very hard in terms of having a silver alert. You know, you have the alerts with respect to the younger persons who may go missing, but we have always advocated to have a silver alert as well. And I have to say, thankfully, with the event of social media, we always see all of the, whilst it may not be a formal scenario, we always see the information being sent out when elderly people are missing. And so I want to hear from you, what are some of the things that you think you can do to assist you with wandering? I will give the first one, easy one, in terms of identifying the person. Of course, yes.
When we walk, he has a red hat, because then that way he's very visible.
Mm-hmm.
And if he had, because that started when he did wander off that one time, and then I found him, so, because he had on the red hat.
Yes, excellent. Exactly. And we're hearing the tracking bracelet. So to identify the person, the red hat, which makes it visible in case they wander off, fantastic. Tracking bracelets, also very, very good to ensure that if they're off somewhere, you know how to track them.
Right, so you're right on track with what I was thinking, because my heart breaks every time I hear about a person missing or a family can't find a person, because persons with dementia and Alzheimer's are like ninjas. They're escape artists. So people blame the family and say, oh, they probably wasn't paying them the money, but these people know how to escape, right? The second thing that I'm a home helper with the National Assistance Board. So I get to see the main caregivers, I get to see the families, and I also get to see the recipient and the trauma that they go through, and it's not easy. So I think that forums like this are very important.
Absolutely.
So I would like to see a link between when a person is diagnosed and the Alzheimer's Association and other organizations like that, so that the doctor can contact the Alzheimer's Association and and make contact for the family. In that way, you can also have, what you want to say? You could also have, I don't know what kind of tagging you call it, but if the Alzheimer's Association have the name and a picture and the family information. When a person goes missing, it's easier to it's easier to help find them.
Absolutely.
Right? And then there were like families, I heard about the wristbands, I heard about ray caps, but you can also put some simple information in their clothing, on their pocket, something to help identify them. Thank you.
Wonderful. I am loving the interaction. Let us applaud not only for your input, but for the work that you're doing with the National Assistance Board. And I remember her specifically, of course, Colleen is here. Welcome, but we love to see the passion, because you have to be passionate when dealing with these scenarios, and you're quite right. Having the photo, and I mention this quite a lot, because you would realize as well that if you take photos of persons who are early stages, as they progress on, they actually do look different. They actually do look different. And so it is good to have a close-up photo or video. And I call it the file of life is how I use it. You have a file of life on your fridge where you can have the photo of the person. You have a close video of the person in your phone. You have all of the endearing names that the person may possibly respond to positively. So for example, in Barbados, his name is Tom, but you really call him Harold at home. It is best for an emergency person or any person who's dealing with that individual to call him Harold, obviously. You want to have in that packet as well the medications that they may be on, the triggers, the things that may be triggering them. If you know that they don't like dogs, for example, then we don't want to discuss anything about that. You also want to highlight what it is that they do like. Oh, they like cricket? We can talk about this. And have all of that there in your file on your fridge, because of course, if anything should happen and they are wandering and the emergency personnel has to deal with them, when they run in trying to find the person and they're found dehydrated in a state of confusion, you want to be able to handle them in as best a scenario as possible. And so this is the reason why we have that information there. In addition to that, Pamelia actually took quite a number of calls from persons who would have been missing over the years, and it's something that still happens. Jackie, our secretary, who is standing right over there, who has been the support of the association for a number of years, doing an excellent job, still takes a lot of those calls. And so this is something that we welcome. And of course, addition with forwarding what the Alzheimer's Association will do when they get the information is to forward the information to necessary, either the ministry personnel, the National Assistance Board. Obviously, there are other entities that are involved, so we can all work together in ensuring a positive outcome in these scenarios. Jackie, you can make a comment?
I would just like to say that the association is actually working with the Barbados Police on a wandering register. And everything that Kayla has just said in the file, we're encouraging people to do that. Up-to-date photos, nicknames, anything that would assist the police in finding that person if they do disappear is what you need to put down. So as soon as we get that wandering register together, we're hoping that people can either fill in what we've set up and keep it at home. We preferably keep it at home. And if they do want to lodge it with the association, they can do so. Thank you.
And particularly, remember I said it before around the communication, we want to let people around us know, so that if the person steps out and the neighbor sees them walking somewhere or the other, somebody can call you and say, oh, we just saw Auntie here walking down to wherever, and we can obviously act very quickly, which is what we need to do. And what I would go a step further to say is that you want to not only, yes, we have police engagement, but we also want, when we find out about the diagnosis, there's no reason why you can't go to the police station in your area and say, my relative, my mother, aunt, whatever. It could be a younger person as well, because I mean, as we know, there's a lot of early onset Alzheimer's, which is anybody under 65, and we have a lot of people who would have been in the 30s and 40s actually suffering from Alzheimer's as well. And so therefore, we want to ensure that the police within your area, there's nothing wrong with you actually going to the station and highlighting the scenario and keeping everyone involved. To speed things along, I will highlight some other things. We can have pressure mats, where when somebody, when you go into a store and you walk through the door, you have the ding, and it lets everybody know that you are there. Exactly. You have the ones on say again? Exactly. You have the alarms on the windows and the doors to ensure that persons are, that you are alerted. One of the things that we realized, which I thought was excellent, we went to community outreach, and as I was going through and offering the hampers and speaking to people, one of the caregivers, it was actually the spouse of the person, and I mean, it is really heartbreaking sometimes when you encounter these scenarios, but she has actually a note on the door saying, Seth, you're home. You don't need to go anywhere. She wrote down the address. Stay here, you're safe. Because it takes a lot of reassuring. And so sometimes he may get to the door. Obviously, it's someplace prominent. He has to see it. He sees it. And because he, over COVID, would have wondered. And so she placed that up, and thank God since then he has not. So these are things that, that you can do. Obviously, as well, if you have, say, for example, the door is white and the handle is metallic, you may want to put a white covering over the door so it blends seamlessly. And this is for persons who may not realize, obviously, you want to have that seamlessly so everything is looking all white, and that may also be a benefit to you as well. You can also place deadbolts at the top and at the very bottom where they may not necessarily go to look, to unlock, to see if you can, when you're securing the area, it is not just the handle to open and go out. Additionally, people don't only wander, walking away. You may have a person who may drive. And so therefore, if you know it's some person who drives, you take the keys away because they can easily get in the car and head out. And so therefore, these are things that you can do preventatively to exactly. So these are things that can happen. Next slide, please. And I will omit the next video in the interest of time, just so I can get to the bathing and aggression topic. So, aggression. Very, very, very touchy issue, because a lot of persons don't necessarily know what to do when this presents. And remember, aggression is not just physical aggression. It can be verbal as well, where you have a person who may be cursing you out, carrying on. And so, obviously, when we have negative behavior presented towards us, sometimes the first thing we wish to do is to retaliate in that instance. But we have to realize that the person may not necessarily be how they're presenting to you. And so you have to remember it is the disease that is causing them to act this way and not the person. So you kind of have to separate yourself, which is difficult, which is why we have these forums and why we have so much support for caregivers, because it's very difficult having to navigate this situation. And so the agitation obviously can be associated not only with the changes in the brain themselves, but obviously there are things that they may be uncomfortable about. They're changing over time. You are also looking different over time. You may seem like a stranger to them, and they may be wondering, well, who is this person in front of me? And so that in itself is going to lead to a lot of angst and frustration, anxiety, a lot of issues that they do have. There may be changes in caregivers as well. Sometimes you may be attached to a particular caregiver, and somebody else comes in, they now have to build a whole relationship, and that triggers a negative outcome. Pets which were previously fine cause some level of anxiety as well. So you have to look and see what the trigger may be, and there are a gamut of things that are possible, but you have to look and see what the trigger might be so as to kind of preempt these things when they do happen. And so when we think about things that were done previously, so I could have gone to the microwave and I could have cooked up something. Now, I want to heat up something. I can't remember how to deal with the microwave. It's not a simple task. It's not okay, I just put this in here and press one button. No, you have to put it in a container that is going to be suitable for the microwave. You have to go in, you have to punch numbers in. You have to place it, and you have to put the appropriate amount of time. Then you have to press the start button, wait for it to end, hear the ding, and then go back. And so these are things that can lead to frustration, because before you were fine with all of this, and now I can't do it. And all of this building up, in addition to then navigating how other people are treating you. Oh, you can't remember anything. I got to tell you something 6 and 7 times. You're not showering at 10 o'clock. We have to do this at 5 o'clock every morning because I got to go to work. So I don't care how you are feeling, it's a bath at 5. You know, we have to navigate all of these things and recognize that these are things that cause and contribute to the agitation. And so we can go to the next slide, because it is prevention in most cases, but if you're feeling unsafe, then obviously, so for example, it's one thing to have verbal agitation or verbal aggression. If you yourself have a situation where somebody is throwing something at you, or you feel you're fearing for your life, then obviously this is a step where you need to have additional intervention. The first thing for preventative, though, would be to ensure that all of the knives and all of the things that can harm themselves and you are locked away, you know, because it makes no sense keeping all of those things around, which are then going to cause issue to either themselves or to you. And we want to monitor how they are feeling, but in the next slide, the first one, I want to show, because it's very short, but I want to show that video so that you can see and I can make a comment as to what else we can do.
Wait, get out of my house.
I live here.
Yeah, well, you're going to get kicked out. I'm going to a lawyer.
No, I take care of you.
Yeah, you're not taking care of anybody. And get that off your face. You got the smirkiest, messy face I ever looked at.
Why are you saying that?
Big pimples on the cheeks and everything. I think that's attractive.
I don't have pimples.
Yeah, you've got pink and pink and pink. You look like you stink. You go keep it up. Keep it up, and you come running in one night, and that'll be the end. And I'll say, hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Oh, Lord, hallelujah. Yep, and they're all out there waiting now.
Well, me and you live together with Debbie.
No, we don't.
Yeah.
I don't live with Debbie.
Yep, Debbie lives upstairs in the apartment.
Oh, upstairs here, but we were getting out anyway.
Debbie's my mom.
How did she get to be your mother when she didn't even go near your father?
So a number of things to recognize here. What do you think that she's doing to enable this situation? Anybody in the quickness of time? How do you think this could be handled? Yes, please. Say again? And so she is basically saying, what are you doing in here? I don't know who you are. Pardon me? Oh, you can hear what he said. So he was basically saying that in the dialogue, you know, she was bringing up other people who obviously were not helping her in that conversation. And so, yes, this would be one thing to avoid. The person is, what are you doing in here? I don't know who you are. They're giving a whole set of negative body language. And she was continuing to kind of stoke the whole conversation. It is better to redirect in that scenario. And it's not going to always work. But you see, this is where when they have their lucid moments of 40 years ago and you have tips as to all the things that they would have liked or all the things that would have happened, you can take, or even the fantastic situation and example that was given earlier, where you come in, they initially think they know who you are, and then 2 minutes later they don't know. You go out of the situation, you let some time pass, you come back and revisit. And so this is very important. It makes no sense standing up there arguing with them, but this is who I am this, that, and the other, whilst they're getting even more agitated and frustrated, because we know that it is going to pass in a short period of time. However, you remember the first video where the person was lashing the broom around at that dog. If you have a situation where that is happening, as Dr. Ramsey would also attest, whilst we may not necessarily wish to medicate every person initially or for any lengthy period of time, or to have them in a state where they're not giving full function, the reality is we don't want to have a situation where persons are either going to have an issue and cause safety concerns to themselves or to their relatives. And so this is also something that may be considered, but I know it is not always the first choice unless the person is in a severe state of agitation and aggression. And so this is something, obviously, that when we talk about diagnosis of Alzheimer's, obviously you're diagnosed with the physician and through the physician. And so therefore, we want to have a team of persons who are going to be assisting you in the care. We don't run at the first option and think to ourselves, okay, this is fully out of my hands and we're going to tie this person down to avoid them from doing anything, because that is not what we would want. The only time that we want to ensure that persons are having some onboarding as it relates to sedation and that type of thing is for the person who obviously is physically going to harm either themselves or harm the caregiver or other family members, if there's any doubt. Other than that, we're looking at preventative measures, and we're looking at ways to handle triggers as it relates to dealing with agitation when it presents. And we must remember, we're not looking at the person cussing me out. Some people say, why is this person behaving like this? They used to go to church. Why are they cursing and carrying on? You have to think of it as the disease state. And always remember, patience, when first dealing with this, we want to have redirection, because we play on the fact that obviously the short-term memory loss is in our favor.
Good morning. I would like to thank the Mount of Praise Wesleyan Holiness Church for the invitation. I'm Gloria de Mies, Commissioner of the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, Country Rapporteur for Barbados, and Rapporteur for the Rights of Older Persons. The Inter-American Commission on Human Rights warmly commends this seminar on understanding Alzheimer's disease. By raising awareness, supporting caregivers, and encouraging dialogues, such initiatives are vital in addressing Alzheimer's challenges in our communities. The Inter-American Convention on Preventing the Human Rights of Older Persons is a key legal instrument that safeguards the rights of older adults, including those with Alzheimer's, by guaranteeing dignity, autonomy, equality, non-discrimination, and judicial protection, amongst others. These principles are rooted in other regional human rights instruments, such as the American Declaration on the Rights and Duties of Men, and interpretations by bodies like the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights and the Inter-American Court of Human Rights. The Convention requires states to enact laws and policies ensuring older persons' rights to dignity and equitable health care, including timely diagnosis, treatment, and palliative care vital for persons affected by Alzheimer's. It calls for preferential treatment to address older adults' vulnerabilities and promote their societal inclusion. In its report on the human rights of older persons and national protection systems, the Inter-American Commission encouraged states to study intersecting factors like race, economic status, and gender affecting healthcare access. In closing, the Inter-American Convention serves as an essential catalyst for advancing the human rights of older persons, including those living with Alzheimer's. It strengthens the legal foundation for domestic frameworks by embedding internationally recognized human rights standards into national laws and policies. Inter-American Commission on Human Rights remains steadfast in its commitment to collaborate with states and civil society organizations to promote and strengthen inclusive, right-based domestic policies that protect vulnerable older adults, thereby fostering dignity, equality, and social inclusion throughout the Caribbean region and the Americas. Thank you, and I would like to wish you an impactful seminar.
Good afternoon, or good morning. Good morning, everyone. Yes, we're on. I trust that you're having a lovely morning so far. Yes, thank you very much for that applause. We're going to transition a bit to a legal conversation now. My name is Kimberly Benjamin, and I'll be your moderator for this session. And with me on stage, I have Dr. Jacqueline Wiltshire, who actually taught me legislative drafting at UE, and also Mr. Corey Beckles, attorney at law. So thanks for being here. And with this session, we're going to be covering all legal points that you can think of. I'm going to start off the conversation with Dr. Jacqueline Wiltshire because she's the one responsible for the draft bill regarding the protection of older persons. So, Dr. Wiltshire, can you tell me a little bit about the rationale behind the bill? I remember when we were at UE, when you were teaching me, you always spoke about the mischief that legislation should correct. Tell me a bit about that. Why this bill?
Well, thank you very much, Kimberly. And I just want to say I think this is an excellent, excellent event, and it's not only timely, but I think it's well composed to sort of answer a lot of the questions I know are going around in people's heads. And a lot of those questions we try to address in the legislation. The rationale for the legislation, of course, we are more than an aging society. People will say we are super aged society. In fact, we are second only to Japan. And that is, I mean, that is quite a feat. So even in the Caribbean, we are way ahead of our other sister states. So if it means that if we are going to be moving ahead so fast with the aging, it's going to have implications for health care, long-term care. It's going to have implications for our financial implications, the financials from government. And it meant that we had to start putting things in place to manage the challenges of aging. As an aging society, it is a privileged age. Not everybody gets to the age that we are. And I say we are, but you know, but once you're there, and it means that we want people to know, look to aging and to their later life, and not with trepidation and anxiety, but to just see it as another stage of life and to even welcome it as another rite of passage. So that was the rationale behind us getting not only the legislation, but the policy that informed the legislation.
Excellent. Excellent comments there, because it's absolutely needed in Barbados. When I look around, you can see that our population definitely is aging and has aged. Before we get into the meat of the matter, can we talk a little bit about terminology? Because I feel like there is sometimes a disconnect. What should you be calling persons who are, let's say, over 60 or over 65? Is it elderly? Is it older person? What is the appropriate terminology?
Well, our policy, and therefore the legislation that follows the policy, terms anyone over 65 as an older adult, older person.
Okay.
And we at first were saying elderly, but the cohort, the stakeholders, the older persons themselves, we prefer the term older persons rather than elderly, because we think elderly comes with a little bit of negative stigma. So we'll want to have active and healthy aging, and therefore I think the terminology should fit the vision that we have of the older person.
Fantastic. I do agree that terminology is extremely important. That's why I wanted to establish that early on in our conversation. So I'll use the phrase older person or older adults going forward. Okay, so let's talk about the bill itself. It isn't available to the public online, as far as I know, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. Can you tell us, therefore, a little bit about the provisions in the bills, especially if there's anything related to what we're talking about today, all about Alzheimer's disease?
Okay. Yeah. Well, of course, this bill wants to be an all-encompassing, what we call omnibus piece of legislation, and it tries to address all of those gaps, because before there were no pieces of legislation that spoke directly to older persons, and therefore you had to make do out of other legislation. And therefore we're looking now to target those areas that are peculiar to aging, of which not necessarily exclusively so, but Alzheimer's and dementias. And therefore the provisions in that are to lessen the fragmentation in the legislation, to have a more coordinated approach, to have penalties where people abuse older persons who are vulnerable older persons, and that is also defined within the legislation, who is a vulnerable person, a person who is in need of care and protection. And also in terms of the provisions for, particularly related to abuse and abuse in its many forms: financial, economic, emotional, and even financial and neglect, even self-neglect. So we even have to look after the person and protect them from themselves. So these are some of the provisions of this piece of legislation, and I think it is a turning point, I think, in Barbados in relation to protection of elderly persons.
It's definitely a turning point in Barbados, and I'm sure the public here, the audience here, would agree with that. It's so needed, and we look forward to its passage in Parliament. But can you tell us a little bit about, because those sound like wonderful provisions. Sometimes in the Caribbean, a challenge we have with our small states, small resources, is implementation and also enforcement. What is there in this bill that will help us as a society that, like, as you said from the beginning, that's aged, where we have these persons living in situations of vulnerability? How will this bill actually, like in real life, assist these persons?
Well, the implementation priorities, of course, are that we not wait on government to do it all. And I think that's the first point, the starting point. We will rely on our stakeholder and our key strategic partners, like the Alzheimer's Association, and there are others who we will work through and with. We'll also make sure that it's adequately resourced in terms of budgeting, because we have to pull it always to the front of mind, because it's what on the top of mind of politicians that will get funded. So we have to, through our advocacy, continue this drive to make sure that it is always in front of mind and always seen as something that needs ongoing budgeted and ongoing financial resources. And of course, we rely on an all-country approach.
Oh, yes.
So everyone in country, it is their business. And it's their business to make sure, because there's going to be some time, if you're not there yet, if God so helps you, you will get there. And therefore, the things that you put in place now will be the things that will be to your benefit at the day that you come. So we're looking at it as a multi-sectoral multifaceted, multi-ministerial effort, and we rely on that kind of support in order to make sure that the implementation is done, is completed.
100%. Wow. I don't know if we could get an applause for that. I love the stakeholder engagement. As you see, this is a church putting on this event. I think the church is also an important stakeholder. Many of them have the shut-in ministries like we have, and so, yes, it will be interesting to see how we move forward. What is the plan for the bill? What can we expect in terms of timeline? I know there were stakeholder meetings last week. What is the plan? When can this lovely audience expect to be able to rely upon this legislation for their loved ones?
Well, we're still going through the process. We hope it is on the legislative agenda for 2025, so we hope that by the end of 2025 we can say we have the piece of legislation that speaks directly to older person and protection. And yes, the bill will be up for public scrutiny because we took it first. We also always have to go to our immediate partners first because they give us their perspectives and show us another lens that we could perceive the legislation. And therefore, we have done that. So now we're going to be out to the wider public for their own scrutiny. And yes, again, the faith-based organizations are key because embedded in that legislation are our morals, our values as a society, and the kind of attributes that we want to upkeep. For instance, the traditional way of minding and caring for people in our societies. So we try to embed that by, for instance, institution is not the first call. You first look around, as you see, the court looks for what they consider a fit person. It could be an aunt, it could be a cousin, it could be a niece. It doesn't have to be a daughter or a son. And then, of course, that person as a fit person to look after in a home, in a family, rather than the 400-bed facility that we're about to see. So, and hopefully, if everybody makes their input, we'll have a robust, airtight piece of legislation that actually preserves the principles of dignity, respect, and integrity.
Wonderful. I want to bring Mr. Beckles into the conversation a bit now, because Mr. Beckles, you also were responsible for drafting a bill prior to the government's bill. Can you, I don't know if you had an opportunity to look at what was in their bill, but just to transition us to our conversations, which will take on a more everyday legal approach, just tell us a little bit about maybe any differences between the two, similarities, and what made you draft that bill, basically.
Good morning, everyone.
Yes, good morning.
Yes, so the bill that my team and I had drafted focused heavily on the prevention of abuse in all its forms. So we have physical abuse, we have psychological, emotional, as the case may be. So the bill covered that in its totality. But the bill also went into, because we had a supplementary framework. So we know that older persons always have to interact with different institutions. And one of the major institutions is a financial institution.
Yes.
So we found that in our pre-research, we found that the financial abuse is one of the major issues older persons face, especially older persons who may be living alone. So you may have an individual who recognizes that they're alone, and they use that to that older person's detriment, right? So the bill focused on finances, major financial issues. It also gave a framework for financial institutions to be able to recognize when a vulnerable older adult interacts with them. So we really wanted to prevent and also alleviate the risk, that very high risk of financial and also other abuses.
Nice. So let's continue along the financial abuse line. I've created some scenarios that I want to read out to you, which I think the audience will find very interesting. We're going to take some questions as well from the audience soon. But let's take the first one because it connects with your financial abuse statement. So let's say there's a lady called Margaret. Any Margarets in the room? All right, Margaret is 62. She was hospitalized for a short period following surgery on her foot. But prior to the surgery, she gave her daughter the power to conduct banking transactions on her behalf by way of a specific power of attorney. You can also explain what that is to the audience when I release to you. So following Margaret's discharge from the hospital, she continues to rely on her daughter to conduct her banking business for her until her foot fully heals. Right. In addition, since her discharge, Margaret was also diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment, which is expected to progress to Alzheimer's disease. Both Margaret and her daughter wish to continue using the same power of attorney as Margaret's Alzheimer's disease progresses. Talk a little bit about this. What advice would you give to Margaret and her daughter? Tell the audience about what is a power of attorney in the first place. How does it work? When does it cease to work? Over to you.
All right, so a power of attorney is a legal document that gives an individual the power or the authority to act on behalf of another person. We have a general power of attorney and we have specific power of attorney. The general power of attorney gives that individual the power and authority to act on that person's behalf generally in every situation. They can sign documents on that person's behalf. They can make certain decisions on that person's behalf in almost every situation. A specific power of attorney is specific to a particular issue. So the specific power of attorney, you can have a specific power of attorney giving a relative, friend, as the case may be, the power to withdraw a certain sum of money out of your bank account. And that's all they can do. Mm-hmm. They cannot sign documents on your behalf. They cannot make other decisions other than withdrawing that amount of money. But coming back to Margaret's situation, now she gave the power of attorney. Mm-hmm. To give a power of attorney, you must be of sound mind to give a power of attorney. You mentioned that she was recently diagnosed with cognitive disorder.
It's only mild, though.
Yeah, right. Mild, but that has to be evaluated because as long as that individual is no longer of sound mind, that power of attorney is null and void. It has no power despite its name. No further power. However, we find situations where persons still use the power of attorney even though they know the individual that gave the power is no longer of sound mind. So in the case of Margaret, when she gave that power of attorney, she really should have informed the bank. And the bank really should have had that power of attorney on their records.
Yes.
So that any transactions that are done in Margaret's account, the bank would know firsthand, even if they're over the teller. Over the teller will at least it will be pulled up in their system, however their system operates, and they will see Margaret and her last name, and they will see there's a power of attorney attached to it. This is really how it should be done, so that the bank is aware of all of the circumstances. The power of attorney also, as you mentioned, is specific. So really, there should be a specific sum that is authorized to be taken out. Anything over that should raise a red flag in the banks.
In the banking institution.
In the banking, their financial network. Yeah. Right? So everything comes down to communication. So it's not just Margaret now and the person who she has given her power of attorney to, but because that person now has that authority to handle her financial affairs, the bank must be aware. So Margaret must communicate to the bank. Yeah. Right? There was did I leave out any other issue?
No, you covered everything. I want to pop back quickly to Dr. Wiltshire and to ask, because in some jurisdictions, there's what is called an enduring power of attorney, so something that lasts beyond the person's cognitive decline. Is the new legislation going to address anything like that for Barbados?
Well, that's interesting because, yes, we said we we're going to have an omnibus piece of legislation, but because of all the reports of abuse that have been, and I'm sure you've been inundated, everyone has been hearing about all of these reports where Ms. Ford could tell you every day that this body has done something with the money, or this somebody has done. And so what has happened is that we've taken that part of power of attorney and what we call the lasting or enduring power of attorney, and we have taken that out and we are fast-tracking it as a piece of standalone legislation, which speaks to all of those matters which Corey said, and therefore will cover those concerns, and hopefully, because it doesn't have to go to that many amount of stakeholders, that piece of legislation will in fact be out quite soon. Will be quite soon on the statutes.
Fantastic. Thank you for that explanation. Mr. Beckles, I have another scenario for you that I prepared. We have now Marlon. I'm sticking with the M's. Marlon. He's 57 years old. He's the employee of a private company in Barbados. But he's been recently diagnosed with younger onset or early onset Alzheimer's disease. He's struggling to continue working, but is unsure of the process and the implications of applying for early retirement due to his medical condition. Remember, he's only 57. His employer seems sympathetic, but unclear on the legal options. What advice would you give to Marlon? And tell us about early retirement due to mental incapacity. What's the procedure for the audience?
Right. Unfortunately, I can't go into specifics as relates to the national insurance scheme and such things. However, there is a provision for early retirement. He works for a private company. That private company will also have their own protocols and procedures as it relates to early retirement. They also will have their own protocols as it relates to pension schemes. So not only do we have the national insurance that he may be entitled to, of course he would get less if he retires early. But that private company will also have, or should also have, their own protocols as it relates to early retirement. Now, this comes down now to not just the advocacy as it relates to Alzheimer's and the other forms of dementia, but we also have to ensure that for the protection of our employees, our workers, these things should be across the board. So as much as the company is private, we have, from the national standpoint, we should have a framework in place. Through the national insurance scheme, whether Barbados Employers and Confederation, they should at least be able to inform and educate their employers what to do in those circumstances. So from my standpoint, in answering Marlon, he has that ability and authority to retire early. He will get a lesser pension, but it is always good, and it will be good in the long run for each and every employee in Barbados to know beforehand, before they even start working, they will know that if I reach that stage, these are all of the ramifications, the legal ramifications, and these are also the legal solutions. So I'm talking about a national framework, and that will come along with the legislation, because we have regulations that will come along with the legislation.
Yes. So just to clarify a point there, you're saying that Marlon can retire early, but just for the audience's sake, should his retirement be with the caveat or with the previous that he's retiring medically unfit? Is that the proper approach for Marlon to take?
It could. I know Dr. Wiltshire may be able to help me here. Because medically unfit will have its own specific definition to that. And that is a very good question. It's a very good question. And it is something that we will have to speak more about, and also as it relates to the conversations between national insurance, along with the legislation that will be brought. So it's something that is possible, right? But all depends on the diagnosis, because you said that this early stages.
Onset, yeah.
So conversations with national insurance, conversations with his medical practitioner have to be had.
Dr. Wiltshire, you want to add anything?
Yeah, because when you retire what they call medically unfit, you're in a special category and receive a different kind of pension than when you get pension age. And that continues until you reach pension age. When you reach pension age, then you get maybe a reduced because you're going early, but then you're then on the pension as everybody else. But in between, between the 57, how old is he?
He was 57, 52.
52, between his 52 and his 67, he will receive.
57.
Yes,
Sorry.
he will receive his medical benefit, medical unfit benefits.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. I want to open the floor to the audience for any of your questions. Bearing in mind, the two attorneys here, they're not given legal advice. We're having a conversation, so if you can avoid any specific scenarios that you have, we would advise you to speak to an attorney about that, your attorney, but we're open to receive any questions that the audience may have at this time. You can raise your hand if you have one or approach the mic. There's a
question that was dropped in.
Okay.
When do you start putting your family's affairs in order? We know something is, when you know something is wrong, like what is the first legal thing to do?
So let's take that question. So I believe the question is asking when you notice that the person is perhaps in cognitive decline and you need to get their affairs in order, what are some steps? Give us some steps, 1, 2, 3 if you can, of what they should do. We talked about the power of attorney earlier, guardianship.
All right, so really you first have, that individual has to be evaluated by a physician. Normally individuals go to the general practitioner. Of course, we have the consultant psychologist that will be able to give you a specific diagnosis, and also not just specific diagnosis, but be able to go through the stages and be able to let that individual know what stage, if they are suffering from some mental deficiency. So we need that evaluation, because that individual, based on the evaluation, if the medical practitioner says that they're able now to sign documents, they're able to give legal instructions, then that goes up, then you go to this next stage. Now, if the individual is suffering from Alzheimer's, any other form of dementia, now you have, that triggers another legal mechanism. And that legal mechanism now is that someone has to be appointed over their affairs, financial and otherwise. So that person who has to be appointed is called the receiver. But in order for that person to be appointed as the receiver, you have to go to the High Court of Barbados. So there will be an application under the Mental Health Act. You will have the medical report from the consultant psychologist. You present that to the judge. The judge sees that there's a need for this person's affairs to be managed. They will appoint that individual who has applied, and now that receiver now can carry out and manage that person's affairs. Now, that is why it is always best before you even see that cognitive or you see what we call an express manifestation of cognitive decline, it is always best that individuals make decisions to plan their estate. We call estate planning. You must make decisions to plan your estate from now, from early. A 30-year-old can plan their estate. 40-year-old, even a 25-year-old. Because we have individuals who are 20 who have life insurance policies. And if you have a life insurance policy, you have an asset. So you can determine who you want that life insurance policy to go to. You can determine what you want that life insurance policy to do in the future. So I always encourage individuals, start planning your affairs now. So to just specifically answer the question, to be able to plan your affairs, there are things that you can do. You can make a will. You can also do a trust. A will is a document that speaks after your death. And the will will have, you will have an executor. The executor is the individual who is responsible for carrying out your wishes. Under that will, it will also have a list of your assets and who you want those assets to go to. That's just a short explanation of what a will is. But a will is one of the most popular documents that you will find to be able to resolve and solve any estate planning issues.
Thank you. I want to come back to you, Dr. Wiltshire, but there's another question, I believe, from the audience, and then stick a pin with what Corey was saying. I'm coming back to you.
It was covered in that. It was covered.
Oh, okay. Fantastic. So,
that we're doing as well. You have the receivership and you have the power of attorney. Does that power of attorney include health, financial, and everything else, or the receivership covers everything else?
Right. The receivership can cover everything, but you don't normally have a power of attorney along with a receivership order, because the reason why you have become a receiver is because that individual is suffering from some mental deficiency. So the power of attorney comes to an end. As long as you become a receiver, any power of attorney that you had previously comes to an end. The court can also, because as a receiver, you are acting as that person's attorney. Basically, you are managing their affairs, financial and otherwise. So through the court, you will have the same power that you had under the power of attorney.
Banks recognize the receivership or the power of attorney?
Both.
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 No, I know they can't have both,
But it's a very important, it's a very good question.
Yeah.
Because we have some banks who, for all intents and purposes, do not recognize power of attorneys. Because a power of attorney, especially a general power of attorney, I'm going to say this quickly, general power of attorney gives the individual who receives the power exactly that, all power to sign documents, but even though that individual brings the power of attorney, the bank still asks them questions. Even though the individual who gave the power of attorney is there, and they're saying, this is my attorney. I want her to sign documents. I want her to do this. Sometimes you will have an individual from the bank who still gives that individual with the power a lot of problems before they can do transactions.
So do you need both, or you can just get the receivership?
No, receivership is only if there is a diagnosis. Only if there's a diagnosis. The power of attorney is for individuals who are of a sound mind.
Right, so the receivership is you're already being diagnosed?
Yes.
Right, okay.
Thank you. We'll take, while we're getting the other question, Dr. Wiltshire, I wanted to stick a pin in what Mr. Beckles was saying earlier, because you were talking about wills and planning. In other jurisdictions, again, there are things called advance directives, where a person can literally decide, when I get to this stage, I want this to happen to me medically, I want this to happen to me financially. Barbados' jurisdiction currently, we don't have.
No, we don't have that, and Dr. Ramsey will tell you that that is something that comes up all the time, where people do not resuscitate. They don't want to be resuscitated if anything happens, but we don't have that, and they are bound by the Hippocratic Oath, which means you're to keep the person alive. So, and the families want to keep you alive. So then it means that when we look at the legislation, we should look to see how we can do so that the person's, their wills and their wants and their desires can be, in fact, when they are in a state of incapacity, can still be respected and upheld. And that is something I think that we discussed, and hopefully it is something, because there are people who said, if anything happened to me, I want no wires and no this and no beeps and no thing. Just let me go peacefully, because it's my Lord's call. And I think that is something that should be respected.
Thank you, Dr. Wiltshire. We are almost out of time, but I want to take the final question, and then I'm going to come back to you for just a final statement. Very brief, 30 seconds. You can think about it while we take the final question.
Okay. You keep making reference to the consultant psychologist. But is it the consultant psychologist or the consultant psychiatrist who makes give you the right to a power of attorneyship?
Mr. Beckles, I'll let you take that one.
So Dr. Ramsey will be able to give you the definition of the psychologist and the psychiatrist. So yes, it is good that we have Dr. Ramsey here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Right, so the assessment can be done by, I think, Corey meant a consultant psychiatrist. So a psychiatrist, neurologist, geriatrician, and so those are the persons that can prepare the medical assessments, which basically will support that this person has lost the mental capacity. So it's loss of mental capacity, which would then trigger the application for receivership.
Thank you, Dr. Ramsey. I love the multidisciplinary approach that just happened there. Attorneys and the medical practitioners and the civil society and so on. So 20 seconds, because my time is up.
Yes.
Final
Well,
comments.
Final comments. One thing I could say about this new bill, which you will help to take us through the process, is that it also puts emphasis on things like training of caregivers, rigid inspection of institutions where care of the elderly are concerned, and it tries to make sure that that there are regulations and that there are gold standards that they're going to be held, their foot will be held to fire for.
Fantastic. Mr. Beckles? 20
Yes,
seconds.
one of the most important individuals who can make decisions as relates to your medical affairs is the next of kin. If you have a power of attorney, I would suggest that you inform, communication again, inform the doctor, general practitioner, inform the QEH, the hospital, of this power of attorney, and ensure that is reflected in the next of kin. That same individual who has the power is also the next of kin. Sometimes we have, sometimes within families, a person may be the next of kin, and that person has the authority to make the decisions as relates to medical decisions, and then we have a tussle between the person with the attorney and the next of kin. So communication with all institutions is extremely important.
Wonderful. I want to thank Dr. Wiltshire and Mr. Beckles for this important conversation. They'll be back on the stage later if you do have more questions. Thank you.
So good morning to everyone. Before we present, just let me take this quick opportunity. I'm so mindful of the time to commend all of you who are here and who are caregivers. Those of you who are not caregivers but are equipping yourselves with the necessary skills and the knowledge in the event that you become a caregiver. Our most successful outcomes as an organization is when we work together and when families and caregivers are intimately involved in the process. The organization cannot take the place of family and the informal caregiver. When in this forum, I know we're focusing a lot on the informal caregiver, the family member, but as an organization who delivers services in the community and with close to over 650 workers, we also have to look at the formal caregiver and bring balance to that, and how do we take care of our formal caregivers who play a dual role. They come to work and they work as a caregiver, and then they leave that caregiving role and they go home and they take care of older persons or dependent persons and the challenges associated with that. So today, Aisha, a social worker, is going to take you through the presentation of the services offered by the National Assistance Board. As I said, in the interest of time, you're going to be skipping some things. If you need further information, you know where to find us. But overall, the National Assistance Board really is looking at developing a comprehensive set of services which are responsive and which are accessible to persons in the community. And when I say community, it's because that is where our services are. As much as we talk about, and Special Advisor Ford would have mentioned at the beginning about the new geriatric hospital with the 400 beds. Given our aging population, that is just a finite number. And at the end of the day, most older persons with dementia and Alzheimer's disease will continue to remain in the community, living with families, and then we put the services in to support patient, client, as well as caregiver. So Aisha is going to take you through the presentation with just some interjection from me at certain points.
Morning again, everyone. So today I'll be presenting on the services provided by the National Assistance Board and how these services improve the quality of the life of the senior and how it reduces the strain on the families. So Basically, the goals of the National Assistance Board are to maintain the dignity of seniors in Barbados, to provide to provide an innovative range of social support and recreational services to facilitate the well-being and to promote the interdependence of seniors, to promote healthy and active aging. So basically, the services provided by the National Assistance Board can be broken down into 6 departments. We have the Social Welfare Department, that's where I come in, the social workers. Then you have the Home Care Program, the Community Elder Care Program. We have several residential facilities, and we have the Recreational Activities Program and a Depushing Program. So let's start with something like the recreational senior centers. We have the Joris Dunner Daycare Center for seniors, and we have the Senior Recreational Activities Program, which have centers throughout the island. So at Joris Dunner, it is located in the Pine, and it has a maximum capacity of 35 persons. You usually pay a small fee of $25, and that includes for meals and a light snack. At the Joris Dunner facility, they usually offer support for persons like, as you heard, the caregivers that might need some respite care, they might need a break. It helps with persons who might want them in a safe space and environment during the day. So you will have some place to take them where they're cared for. So this is just a short video to show you where it's located and some of the activities that they might engage in at the facility. They usually do like arts and crafts, group games, brain challenges. They have sometimes music and dance, worship sessions. Sometimes, depending on who's on call, they might have gardening and outdoor activities that they can do. Right. And as mentioned before, we know that we are hearing it all the time. We are an aging population, and the old lady that was on the last slide, she's actually 100 years old. Okay, so moving on to the recreational centers. We have 19 centers located throughout the island. Our newest location being in Vauxhall Senior Citizens Village. We have 6 tutors who teach the participants crafts, and we have 2 fitness instructors. Right, so this video will just show you some of the activities that they would do at the recreational centers. Mobility is not a deterrent for not being physically active. So the tutors and the instructors know how to facilitate persons with mobility challenges as well. And we can see that the importance of these centers is that it helps to promote physical and mental social wellness. We have, as mentioned before, gentle fitness and wellness programs, and it also helps to combat senior isolation throughout community activities. In the video, you can see this lady, she was 72 years old, and you can see that she's very fit. Right, so the activity centers have developed so much that they have now developed a dance group called NAB Unity Dancers, and they're being booked for events. They just opened at the Senior Games. So it's not just you come and you do your crafts, but you actually develop friendships and groups. We have an exhibition yearly where they come and display all the crafts they would have done throughout the year, and people actually come and buy their products, so they also promote entrepreneurship. All right, so moving on to our facilities, we have the Clive Gollop Shelter for Men, and this facility helps to reintegrate residents into society through a rehabilitation program. Mentioning right now, the shelter for men is temporarily closed down until, and usually you have to be 50 years or older to apply to be in the shelter. It's independent living. All of our facilities are independent living. We have Lancaster House, which accommodates persons who have been through fires, floods, or any of those related circumstances who may need accommodation. This is just a few pictures, again, to show the newly renovated facility at Lancaster House. And it's also transitional, so the social worker there would also help to work with the family to rehabilitate them and bring stability to them to help them to reintegrate into society. All right, moving on to the Vauxhall Senior Citizens Village. It provides shared accommodation for seniors who are capable of independent living, but they are unable to afford commercial rates or pay for a private service care facility. We find that in Barbados, housing is one of the main concerns as well, and this is how we help to combat that issue. So this is just a video to show you what Vauxhall Senior Citizen Village looks like. So the importance of facilities like this is that it provides a safe and comfortable space for the person to live. You can build strong social connections and develop an increased sense of purpose and joy living in this type of shared living accommodation.
I'm thankful for this place. It's comfortable. One of the things they say, a lot of people take a lot of things for granted. I don't, because a lot of
Okay, so we could dive into the home care program. The home care program offers support services to improve the quality of life for seniors living alone or living where they are not getting the care that they might need. It offers cooking, cleaning, washing, personal hygiene, and limited shopping, especially for people who live alone and they're not able to go out and do their daily shopping. We also have transportation for workers in the more rural areas, so no one is left out based on your demographic or where you live. We have transportation for the workers to get to the clients. We also have training for staff, and right now we have a series of training on self-care and caring for the caregiver. And this is important because it gives the staff a better understanding of dementia. It helps to enhance the communication skills of the worker, as we heard from the previous presentations, how important it is to learn and develop those skills, which can help manage challenging behaviors of aggression, persons not wanting to bathe. For example, you might have an old man that, might be a little bit worthless, but you know how to say, come daddy, come and go bathe, we're gonna bathe today, and that might encourage him to go take a bath instead of being resistant. It also helps the staff to understand and respect and maintain the dignity of the client through training. Here in this slide, we see that we heard about caregiver burnout. So sometimes we try to promote self-care, not only for the informal caregiver, but for the staff who do it on a daily basis. We also have the debushing program and lawn maintenance for our recipients, and we also offer nurse services for our recipients as well. Okay, so now the community elder care program, it basically enhances the home care program and gives a holistic approach to care so that you get the full thing. It offers reading, interacting, assisting with personal hygiene, playing games, preparing light meals for the person. Their time frame is usually from 9 to 12 or from 1 to 5. Moving on to the social welfare section. The social worker in that department may do intakes, conduct assessments, manage cases, make referrals, participate in community or plan community outreach, prepare reports, network with other social agencies, and advocate on behalf of the clients, supervise and train students from BCC and UE. So this is just an example of a case, a featured article where the old lady was neglected by her son, and we visited to implement the services, but when we got into the house, we realized that it was a hoarding situation, and we would have worked with the Ministry of Health and Welfare to have the house cleaned up, replace all the things that had to be thrown out, and then put in the home care and companionship service to enhance the quality of life of the client. As mentioned before, legislation is a work in progress, and as that develops, then we will have that. So that brings me to the end of my presentation.
The name is appropriate. A rapid fire round of questions. We have some from the box at the back, which I'm going to treat with first. But if you know you have a burning question, I advise you to line up at one of the mics because we're going to have to cut this session short. So we have all of our speakers from this morning, our presenters. I want to say thank you to all of you. And this first question is actually to Dr. Ramsey. So this person had this question burning from the beginning. So it said, Dr. Ramsey, are there any tests that one can do earlier in life to determine if you are at risk or even potentially have Alzheimer's disease? Is there such a test?
There are tests. Well, first, we do testing once we have signs and symptoms of the illness. There are tests that can be done which, let's say, can say that you are predisposed, but there's no guarantee that you will develop the illness. One of the tests that has been around for a while is called the ApoE test, but the ApoE test, even if you have, let's say, both genes, both alleles, doesn't necessarily mean you will develop the illness. Within recent times, there's a blood test that has been developed to detect the abnormal proteins in your blood which develop in the brain in people who have Alzheimer's. And it is now being made more commercially available, still quite expensive, but it's coming, all right? So there are tests that can be done, but generally speaking, the tests are not done alone. the tests are done in persons who have symptoms and signs.
Thank you, Dr. Ramsey. I'm not seeing anyone at the mic, so I'm going to go to, oh, you're here. So I'll take one from here and then go back to the set so that we have it even. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I guess this would be for Dr. Ramsey. Is there a correlation between menopause as it relates to the decline of the female hormones and Alzheimer's or dementia?
There seems to be there's a correlation between menopause and memory dysfunction. That has clearly been established. And we believe that there is also the increased risk for developing Alzheimer's, and hence the thought that, and hence it's used to explain why maybe more women seem to be coming down with the illness than men.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I want to go to this question, which was deposited in our Q&A box. Caregivers, Lana and Brenda, and I want to come to the government officials as well because I think it all connects. Are there free resources for caregivers, in your experience? Lana's already laughing because we have this conversation often. Are there free resources for caregivers to be able to go off and have a break for a few hours or a day? Many do not have the financial means to fully self-care that's necessary to cope. So caregivers, in your experience, tell us about Barbados. Does this kind of thing exist? And then we'll go to the state and maybe civil society as well.
Well, in my case, no. It was nothing for caregivers. And as you know, that even with the caregiver support group, that was one of my dreams because there was nothing out there for the caregiver. Everything was focused on the person living with the disease and not the person that's actually taking care of that person. So for me, I went looking for information. I didn't hear about anything. I went looking on how to deal with it. It's only through the Alzheimer's Association that I was better able to manage my emotions. I still am not perfect. I still have those days. But in the early stages, it was really bad in terms of I had a lot of time home because it was panic attacks. It was anxiety. It felt like it was overwhelmed because I still have a daughter going to school. My eldest daughter suffers with seizures, and I had work, and I got mom, and I got the bills, and everything just felt like it was going crazy. And I was telling them, I can get on a plane. I left all of them. I'm like, I go on where? I go up on a plane. It was till that point. But because then the resources of the Alzheimer's Association, then you learn. So that's why the support group is very vital to help the caregivers in this situation.
Fantastic. Brenda, I want to go to you if you want to add anything, challenges with self-care.
My situation was a little different because I came to this when I was retired and I had my own financial resources. So, and he was not, aggressive. A lot of the things that were discussed around and some of the images that were on the screen, that's not him. So I've been fortunate that, so I have not actually actively sought, and I had a very good family support system as well. So, but as I alluded earlier, there's a lot of stuff online, and then now that I'm aware of the Alzheimer's Association more, then, I'll be reaching out to them.
Fantastic. I want to bring the conversation to the state now. Tell us a little bit, we just saw your presentation, but in relation to this particular audience member's question, what is there available?
So indirectly, there is some sort of support for caregivers. What we should have mentioned during Aisha's presentation is that temporarily our daycare facility is closed because it's being repurposed, undergoing major renovations. But what we have found is that a lot of persons who brought their older and their loved ones to the program, it serves a purpose in that they give them then some free time so that they can go about their business. Also with the elder care program, where you put in the worker to spend time and to so they won't be isolated, what we found is that that relieves the caregiver to go out if there has, and Lana can attest to this, that relieves the caregiver to go out and to look after their business. If you're talking about direct respite care, where you take the
the person who's being cared for out of the environment. At this time, no, but that is very much a part of the plan as we go into the amalgamated services eventually and look at other responsive and relevant services which the community needs.
Thank you. I want to come back to Civil Society Barbados Alzheimer's Association, but I'm going to go to the audience because I think there's a question there.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes. Okay. This question is
Just
for,
put the mic up so that we can hear you.
This question is for the attorney. When you speak about a receiver, establishing a receiver, is that versus an executor? Does the one replace the other?
They don't replace the other. The receiver is an individual as appointed by the court over the affairs of an individual who has been diagnosed with mental deficiency, what we call the Alzheimer's disease or other form of dementia. The executor is an individual who is named in a will to manage the affairs of that individual who has passed on. So the receiver manages the affairs of an individual suffering from that disease while they're still alive, of course. The executor only comes into play after that individual has died.
Thank you.
So are you saying?
You have a follow-up.
So are you saying, if you have already established the executor and your powers of attorney while you are in your right mind, would it still become necessary to have a receiver?
Yes, it is still necessary because the receiver, as long as you are not of sound mind, you need a receiver. Remember, the executor can only take over your affairs after your death.
So in other words, you're saying that you should anticipate that is a possibility that you might not be in your right mind and appoint all three sections. The executor,
right,
the receiver, and the powers of attorney.
Right. So it is something good to do, but as long as you are diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease or other form of dementia, you trigger the mechanism of needing a receiver. And the person that you have appointed, even if you appoint someone or name someone to be your receiver, the court still has to make the decision whether or not that person is fit in the circumstances.
Yes. So I'm going to use some moderator privileges here. If we imagine a line, right? And at the start of the line is a person who is sound of mind. Everything is well up here mentally. That person, if they desire, can have a power of attorney where they appoint somebody to conduct business for them. Maybe they have a bad foot, but their mind is good. So that person can go to the bank and conduct that business for that individual. If we move along the line now, so we have the power of attorney, but that person is no longer of sound mind. That power of attorney ceases. So we're on the line, power of attorney, the line ceases. Then what Mr. Beckles was saying is that then the guardianship application, receivership would step in there. And then let's imagine another point where the person dies, the executor, the will step in there. So you can almost think of it of this continuum. Is there another question from the floor? Let's have it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I don't know who will answer this question, but the question is, what's the difference between Alzheimer's and this dementia?
I'm going to let Dr. Ramsey handle that one.
Right, so dementia is like an umbrella term, or the example that I like to use, let's look at dementia. Let's say you have 2 or 3 cars, okay? They're all cars, but Alzheimer's would be one type of car, vascular dementia would be another type of car, and there's several other different types of cars. So dementia is like the car, Alzheimer's is the brand. Is that okay?
Sorry. I'm sorry. both conditions, the person is not responsible for what they do. They don't know what they're doing.
Correct.
One is worse than the other. That's what you're trying to tell me?
They can all be serious. They can all be serious. It's just that you have different types of dementia. And Alzheimer's is the one that is most well known because, there's been a lot of discussions around Alzheimer's, but Alzheimer's is only one type of dementia. They can all be serious. Okay, so generally speaking, dementia is a serious illness. Alzheimer's is one of those serious illnesses.
Thank you, Dr. Ramsey, and thank you, Brother Carter, for that question. I want to go to the Barbados Alzheimer's Association. This question here is more about nutrition, so maybe there's an educational component to it, and I'm curious to know what the Barbados Alzheimer's Association is doing to help persons with the question like this. So the nutrition that is required for somebody over a certain age, and where appetite is declining, the person is given trouble to eat, what advice would the Barbados Alzheimer's Association have for the audience to help that person with their nutrition?
Okay. There are a number of things that I wish to say, and there are a number of things that I wanted to mention, and I'll get to that point on nutrition. It's going to be aligned with the risk factors that we spoke about earlier. To the gentleman's point in terms of dementia and Alzheimer's, I know that when we're speaking about it, sometimes people think about it interchangeably. So you'll find most people saying, okay, they talk about dementia and they talk about Alzheimer's and they think it's the same thing. So as Dr. Ramsey was mentioning and as he stated, of course, it is not exactly the same. Dementia, of course, would be the umbrella term. There are a number of conditions, and it's an umbrella term for a number of conditions which predispose you to the memory loss, obviously poor cognitive function, all of the things that we spoke about and that Dr. Ramsey spoke about in terms of the warning symptoms, spatial awareness, and that type of thing. Some of the things that can cause this can vary. We talk about Alzheimer's because, of course, 60% of people who have dementia are Alzheimer patients, and so that's why the Barbados Alzheimer's Association has put such a mandate on trying to make people aware of this. But there are a number of things that can cause you to have dementia symptoms. Infection, certainly you can have traumatic brain injury. There are other things Dr. Ramsey would have mentioned in terms of the Lewy body, Alzheimer's, and so on. And so it's good for us to understand these things, but because of the prevalence of Alzheimer's, we're talking a lot about Alzheimer's because 6 out of 10 people who have dementia symptoms suffer from Alzheimer's. Now, remember, we also spoke about the risk factors associated, and a lot of these risk factors were cardiovascular. And so we're thinking high blood pressure, diabetes, cholesterol, sedentary lifestyles, and of course, inactivity. And so a lot of these things, as it relates to the nutrition now, are going to play a part because what we're going to eat and what we ingest is going to assist us in reducing our risk. So when we have persons who we're trying to think of what would be a good diet for our Alzheimer's patients, sometimes, and this is based obviously on global research, sometimes persons will say, okay, having a Mediterranean diet is recommended. So you're looking at a lot of olive oils, a lot of fish. Obviously, you're trying to reduce the incidences that are going to increase your risk then for the diabetes and the cholesterol and so on, because what's good for your heart is good for your mind. And so these are the type of things that you want to focus on in addition to, of course, keeping persons hydrating, having good exercise, remaining social, because these are things that are also going to play a part in your predisposition to the disease itself. And I want to make a quick plug. I actually didn't mention it earlier, but since we are dealing with a lot of older persons, one of the risk factors which you may not have seen is actually hearing loss. And so sometimes if you have an older relative who is having hearing loss, it's something to pay attention to because, of course, you would remember if you can't hear, you can't really communicate well. And it also leads to a number of, I guess we can say, aggressions when persons cannot hear and you have to say, well, I can't hear you, or say it again, or you're shouting at me, and it also becomes a negative act. And so sometimes we want to impress upon persons it is much better to have a hearing aid, because it can aid in your communication as well with persons. And of course, that will aid in your social interactions, and that will also reduce the possibility of the depression and the anxiety and everything to kind of downward spiral you into a number of these conditions. So in a roundabout way, I just wanted to mention that. I hope that that has
Thank you so
assisted.
much, Kyla, for that. And with that, that's the end of our rapid fire round of questions. I'm going to ask the speakers to remain on stage because we have some tokens for you. While the team is getting those ready, just one word. If you say more than one, I'm going to cut. I'm just kidding. One word that you want to leave today, one word. Let's start with Dr. Ramsey and come around the front while the team gets the tokens together.
2 words.
Cut. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, be aware.
Be aware. Thank you.
Plan.
2 words. Patience. 3 words. Patience, dignity, and respect.
Nice.
Empathy.
Love that.
2 words. Expectations and reality. Try to let them link.
Love that as well. The caregivers are coming through.
3 words, but the same word. Talk, talk, talk.
2 words, quality care.
Oh, beautiful.
My word is committed.
Love that. So let's put our hands together for today's speakers. Thank you so much. And we have some tokens of appreciation for you that the team will come and present.
Okay, we're soon to the end, but what I have is some giveaways. Whoop, whoop, giveaways. And for my giveaways, I have a trustee list, and I am just going to call out the 2 winners who have been nominated by ChatGPT based on the list that I have. So, can Tisha Clark please make your way to the stage? You have been one of our prize givers, and this prize is sponsored by McBride. Then our next winner is Tora Thompson. Is she still here? Are you still here? Yeah. Y'all were both sitting next to each other? ChatGPT malicious, boy. All right, so someone could just give them the prizes.
Put your hands together for the one and only Cynthia Ford. Always a tower of liveliness. It's our pleasure having you to share this morning in the capacity that you did. Thank you for bringing your liveliness to the occasion. I just want to offer you this token of appreciation for what you've contributed to us today. May God bless you. Continue to bless your work.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My task is to bring you the vote of thanks, and then there'll be one other thing after that. So let me get right away because it's a bit lengthy. First of all, I want all of us to put our hands together and give God Almighty a round of applause for a sincere and an extremely well-organized seminar. Without God's help, we would not have been able to do what we did today. So He has been really good to us. I also want to thank the Mount of Praise Wesleyan Holiness Church, our pastors, the local board of administration, and the members, and specifically members of the Care for the Elderly, the shut-ins, support ministry team, and the ushers as well. And we also want at this point in time to involve the media team, which have been doing an excellent job streaming this program this morning. And I also want to include Kezia Jones. She has been amongst us, not in the booth, but she's been down here doing work. So put your hands together for Kezia as well. We also have two persons that were non-Mount of Praise persons, but they have volunteered their services. That is Melissa Beckles and Nadia Boyne. Put your hands together for them as well. And the forum presenters. We want, first of all, this is a double one for the Honorable Cynthia Ford, JP MP, and I really enjoyed her, the exchange that she had with her mother and had to walk around the house. If the knife was used on her, we would not have her here today, but thank God she is here. Thank you. And then we move to two caregivers, Lana Boyce and Brenda Pope, who really give us some good experience. Thank you very much. We also want to thank our medical practitioner, Dr. Ambrose Ramsey. Put your hands together for him. A very, very insightful presentation. He's doing good work. We also want to recognize Keila Branch. She's the executive board member of the Barbados Alzheimer's Association. Also, Commissioner Gloria DeMays, Corey Beckles. He's also Commissioner of Inter-American Commission of Human Rights and the Rapporteur of the Rights of the Older Persons. Put your hands together for those two. We also want to thank Dr. Jacqueline Wiltshire, who you saw on the stage not long ago. She's from the Ministry of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs. And along with her, we had Corey Beckles, Attorney at Law, Colleen Walker, National Assistance Board, and Aisha Edwards, National Assistance Board. Put your hands together for all three of them. For something like this that we had to put on this morning into this afternoon, we really have to thank our partners. There have been some partners and there have been some supporters, that we really want to recognize at this time. We want to recognize and thank the Barbados Alzheimer's Association and Alzheimer's Disease International, Ministry of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs, McBride Caribbean Limited, Caribbean International Freight and Logistics, Nichols Baking Company, Motro, Royal Caribbean Security Limited, Ross University School of Medicine. They were in the corner doing some work all day. They also give some finances as well. We also have Jennifer Bino and Kimberly Combs-Boyne, who worked extremely hard during this presentation this afternoon. We also want to thank Scotty's Fresh / Chris Gibbs for their donations for the fruits and Corey for the coordinating. You would have experienced that during the break. We also want to thank Creative Foods and Food/Jimmy for the donation of the bottled water, which became very well to us. Cargo BGI, Pharmacy Sales for the donation of the insurers. The University of the West Indies George Allen Chronic Disease Research Center, in collaboration with the University of Saskatchewan and our own Dr. Kim Quimby. She has been in charge of these students. We also want to thank Walker's Institute for Regenerative Research, Education, and Design for the loan of the plants as their core. Then we also want to thank Caroline Jackman, Rodney Gittins, Julia Haywood. They all contributed for the design of the date forum flyer. They put their work into, they donated the flyers and so on that we had before in promoting this session today. We also want to thank Trevor and Pauline Headley for the natural juices, which you enjoyed during the break. Brenda Earl, Anthony Lynch, Adam Evelyn, the Barbados Association of Retired Persons. Again, we want to really thank them as well. They have been very, very instrumental in helping us here this morning and into this afternoon. We also want to recognize Elegant Touch events by Donna Roberts, the forum caterer that have done the catering for us. Then we want to thank Serenity Rentals for the cocktail tables and covers, which you see, you recognize all around to help the place look really spanking. And we want to thank Lisa Jones, who took care of the team from the Ross University during the forum. Coming down to the end here, Pauline and Edward Benjamin, they really work hard behind the scenes. You would not have been seeing them, but they did a lot of work behind the scenes. That's Sister Kimberly's mom and dad. They work extremely hard as well. We want to thank also Jaira and Philippa Joseph for considerable assistance and guidance in the planning and execution of the forum, as well as the artwork for the badges and so on, and the presentations. Now, there's a lady, short in stature but powerful, who has done some excellent work here. She worked hard hours. She was here Friday. She was here this morning early. And that person is Mrs. Amelia Bonnie Worrell, for all of the decorations she did. And her team, she had her team, James Bascom, he was all up and around. Yes, James really assisted. You had David Knives as well. He didn't only play the saxophone, but he was also working hard today, as well as Sister Omita Dial. She did some in the presentation and so on, the exercises. That helped us as well. And she didn't only do that, she worked downstairs very, very hard to have everything, all the correspondence going on and so on. Put your hands together for them. They did some really good work. And we also want to thank the Barbados Wesleyan District, Victory Wesleyan Holiness Church, Blazing Trail Hikers, the People's Mart, Roxy Supermarket, Massey Stores, and Josiah Payne for participating in or permitting free promotions and announcements about the forum at their venues. This is before promoting the venues. And last but second last, we want to thank the media. I understand that CBC was here and somebody, and the Nation Publishing Company, they were here. Thank you very much. Because, you know, a lot of people say the church don't do anything. But here at Mount of Praise, we are showing that the church, we are working. Put your hands together for Mount of Praise. We have good pastors, we have a good board, we have good people here at Mount of Praise. So we are looking forward to see you coming back here in our morning services, which start at 8:30 sharp. We also want to thank my wife, Deacon Nellis Cobham, who gave the welcome this morning. She worked very hard behind the scenes as well. She worked on behalf of both of us. We also want to thank Brother George Hall. He told me don't mention his work with thing. Brother George Hall and Kimberly Benjamin for having excellent moderators. Excellent moderators. And let me put in this line here, because if I miss any person, I don't want any person talking my name behind my back. So if there are any other persons who would have contributed in any way, Sister Ann Carter, don't let me forget her as well too. She did, she did some work. So let me go again. If there are any other persons whose name I have not mentioned here, I want to thank you very much. You are covered under the blood. So, and we want, without your presence, ladies and gentlemen, this would have been nothing. So we really want to thank you very, very much. It has been our first attempt, and I'm extremely happy for this first attempt. May God bless you, and we look forward to the second one.
Amen. Thank you. Please stand as we say a prayer of dismissal. That's God's covering as you go. Heavenly Father, we just want to say thank you. Thank you for all your blessings upon us today. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your mercy. We thank you for even withholding the rain so that we can have others come out to join with us. We thank you, Lord, for giving all the presenters the wisdom and the knowledge to pass on to us. We thank you for everything that has been done here today. And we ask your blessings, God, as we go, that your Holy Spirit will cover us with your anointing, God, and shield us from any kind of dangers, accidents, seen and unseen, any incidents. Take us all home safely or wherever we are going. Take us safely. And we thank you for doing it in Jesus' name. Amen. Have a blessed day and please travel safely.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. This is just a quick notice to let you know, in recognition of World Alzheimer's Month, the Barbados Alzheimer's Association will be completing several activities. The first being our fundraising tea party on the 30th of August at St. Paul's Conference Centre, in Bay Street, starting at 3 p.m., going on to 6. The cost is $75. You'll get some great food, some teas. We're having some entertainment. So please come out and help us with this fundraiser, because this will help us do our activities for the rest of the year. Thank you so very much.